How did Callum go from being a scared little kid to breaking the laws of the universe? Well, we're about to find out. Perch up with your favorite dragon and get ready to eat some moonberry surprise, because we're about to travel to the magic land of Xadia. Before we get too excited, let's meet some of our main characters. First up, we've got Callum, the older brother of Ezran, and the aspiring high mage of Callum. He's not good at too many things, but once he puts his mind to something, there's nothing in this universe that can stop him. Next, we've got Ezran, heir to the Callum throne, and probably the smartest 10-year-old you'll ever meet. His best friend is Bait, his pet glowtoad, and his most loyal companion. To finish off the epic trio, we've got Rayla, a feisty moon shadow elf, and soon-to-be romantic interest to Callum, but I won't spoil that too much for you right now. After that, we've got Viren, the current High Mage of Callum, and somebody who's not afraid to get his hands dirty with some dark magic. His daughter Claudia is currently following in his footsteps, learning all of the things alongside him. And finally, we have Soren. Oh, sweet silly Soren, the older brother of Claudia and son of Viren. He's a part of the King's Guard and protects the throne with his life. And with that, let's jump right in to the Dragon Prince. Book 1, Moon. Episode 1, Echoes of Thunder. The first episode of The Dragon Prince tells us the backstory behind their land. Long ago, Xadia was run by the 6 primal sources of magic: the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the sky, and the ocean. But all of that changed when humanity discovered a 7th type of magic: dark magic. Humans use the essence of the magical creatures of the land to fuel the power of their dark magic. The other more powerful creatures of the land, the elves and the dragons, were so horrified by the humans' greed that they decided to banish all of the humans to the west, thoroughly separating the human kingdoms from the kingdoms of Xadia. The protector of the boundary was the Dragon King, Thunder. He had lightning powers and was the most powerful of them all. While fighting back, the humans destroyed Thunder with their dark magic, and then ruthlessly destroyed his singular heir, his one and only dragon egg. The show then cuts to current times, with some of our main characters being introduced for the first time. Ezran and his pet Bait are sleeping peacefully during the storm, and Callum is drawing fantasy sketches. We are then shown a scene in the woods of a pack of elves seemingly attacking a lone human king soldier. A girl elf, soon to be known as Rayla, tracks him down, but is unable to deliver the final blow that would have ended the soldier. She watches as he runs back to the kingdom, questioning her own actions. The soldier immediately goes back to the kingdom to tell of what he has seen. After passing along the message to the king, we learn that the elves that attacked him that night were moon shadow elves, and that the following day will be a full moon, meaning that they will be in their strongest form. Because the king feels unable to defend his kingdom, he orders that they find the moon shadow elves during the daytime, in order to take them out before they're able to attack that evening. From Rayla's perspective, she debates whether or not to tell the truth about letting the soldier go, but upon seeing some of the red forest berries, she decides to slash their juices on her swords, mimicking a blood-like look instead. None of her elven clan notices the difference. They even congratulate her on the successful kill. Back to Callum and his whereabouts, he appears to be having sword fighting classes, during which he notices a beautiful girl, Claudia, whom he clearly has a crush on. Claudia's brother Soren is the one teaching Callum how to sword fight, and it becomes increasingly obvious that he is a plunderer. Before much can be done about it, Callum and Ezran are summoned to the king's quarters. It is here that the king decides to send them away for the night, also revealing that Callum and Ezran are the king's sons, making them the heirs to his throne. Soren is given the duty to lead the soldiers to find the elves, following an archangel moth which is supposedly drawn to the elven power. Callum sees the soldiers gearing up and demands that he join them. But this is laughable, as Callum is only 15 years old and doesn't even know what armor to put on. Soren leaves Callum sputtering in the mud, safe inside the kingdom walls. Soren uses the moth, but it finds the elves before the soldiers notice. The elves, knowing that something is up, cast an invisibility spell in order to hide themselves. Soren, not believing that the moth would find them anyway, is not surprised when he doesn't see any elves. He then proclaims to the rest of the group that they'll just need to wait for the elves to come to them. Before leaving, the soldier that Rayla was supposed to kill is clearly shown to the group, and when the soldiers leave, she gets thoroughly scolded by all of the other elves as they believe she has now doomed them all to die. Episode 2. What is done? Because of Rayla's betrayal, she has been shunned from joining the rest of the elves on their mission of assassinating the king. She's told that she will be unbound from them the second the mission is over, and she is to stay in a safe space until they are all finished with their duties. If they don't return for her by sunrise, she's ordered to return home to the elves, bearing bad news. Obviously, this doesn't sit right with Rayla, and she proclaims to herself that she will fix her mistake, running off to follow the other elves from afar. Meanwhile, Claudia is intrigued by Callum, as he told her that he'd rather learn magic like her than sword fight with Soren. With this in mind, Claudia approaches Viren, the king's advisor and essentially manager. She appears to have an exciting idea, but the show cuts to Callum's perspective before we can find out what it is. Callum is concerned because he told Ezran that the elves were coming to kill the king, as there is no other reason the king would hastily send both of them away. Since he spilled the beans, Ezran has not been responding to Callum. Frustrated, he forces his way into Ezran's chambers, only to find that he's missing. Callum is called into the king's throne room, where he is given a letter. The king instructs Callum to open the letter whenever. Well, he never finishes the sentence, but they both know that he means to open it when he dies. Callum, upset, tries asking his father why he can't just make peace with the elves. The king solemnly explains that there are generational issues between the magical kingdoms and the humans, some of which are his own doing. The two hug, and Callum is forced to live with his stepfather's wishes, hoping that he won't ever have to open the letter that he left him. Meanwhile, Rayla scaled the entire mountain and the castle wall, making it look easy nonetheless. She quickly finds Callum, demanding to know the whereabouts of the king and Prince Ezran. She tells Callum that he doesn't have to die, and the only actual people she plans on killing are the two of them. Not wanting his brother to die, Callum lies and tells Rayla that he is Ezran. She charges after Callum, but they're both interrupted by the real Ezran calling to Callum from behind a large painting. Ezran distracts Rayla by flashing her with his pet bait. Apparently he can do that, and he quickly grabs Callum as the two run into the chambers together. Rayla easily follows and even makes it down to the secret lair that Ezran had found. She's about to kill them both, but Ezran insists that there's something she needs to see first, and reveals the Dragon King egg, the one that was supposedly crushed along with thunder. Episode 3, Moonrise. Viren has come up with a plan to save the king, using dark magic. He plans on trading the king's soul for another in order to preserve the king, and in turn, the kingdom. But the king wants nothing to do with it. He's frustrated with dark magic, and all the harm that it has brought upon the kingdom. He doesn't see the point in continuing to use the very thing that got him into this mess in the first place. He tells Viren off, especially after Viren felt fine volunteering everyone in the castle to trade their lives except for his own. Eventually, Viren decides that he will put his own life on the line to save his dear friend and king. He says goodbye to both Claudia and Soren, not telling either of them his plans. He approaches the king once more, this time offering his own life. But before the king can hear that, he begins raging about the black magic again. The king goes on a tangent about how Viren can't just let it end, and about how he doesn't see his rightful place in the kingdom, and always tries to be someone more than he is. The king then makes Viren get down on his knees and begins yelling at him about how he's just a servant. As one might guess, Viren does not offer up his soul after that humiliating conversation. Meanwhile, Callum, Ezran, and Rayla all come to common ground. Ezran doesn't want to give the egg to Rayla, but Rayla wants to show her people that the egg is safe in order to secure the kingdom's safety. They all head to the roof together, but are stopped by Claudia, who confesses that she knew her father had taken the egg and was going to use it for some type of dark magic. Callum, with the help of Surprise, shackles Claudia and runs away with the others. Using dark magic, she creates smoke dogs to come after them. With no hope left, Callum recalls a spell he saw Claudia do earlier with her storm ball that blew a spiral of air out of her mouth. He mimics the motions that she used, and it works. Rayla is amazed as she didn't know that Callum was a mage, but neither did he. Upon reaching the top, Rayla tries to show her leader the egg, but he still wants to punish the humans. Rayla isn't having it, so the two clash with one another. Rayla comes to the conclusion that she may be sacrificing her life for these princes that she barely even knows, only because she knows it's the right thing to do. Callum reaches his father's tower, but finds only soldiers fighting in his wake. He calls to the king, but with no response. He hastily decides to run back down the tower, horrified at what he might see happen to his father. On his way down, he trips over dead bodies, forcing him to assess the carnage. Once outside, he, along with Rayla, Ezran, and Bait, decides to leave for Xadia in order to return the egg. Not far into their journey, Rayla is released from her duties, meaning their mission has been completed, meaning their father is dead. Rayla doesn't tell either of the boys, though, probably because it would interfere with their plans. Episode 4, Bloodthirsty. Our next episode begins with Viren getting vengeance for the way the king treated him. And at this point, I'd like it to be known that, as the audience, we did not see the king die. It's just presumed to have been the elves that did it. However, my hunch is that it was actually Viren who committed the final blow. But anyway, moving on. Viren and the kingdom hold the king's funeral, which is shown to be upsetting for the castle workers doing it, as they're supposed to mourn the king for 7 days and 7 nights before the official ceremony. Viren insists that he's speeding up the process because you aren't allowed to mourn in war, which is what he continues to call the situation with the elves. The person in charge of lighting the king's body on fire refuses, still thinking that it's inconsiderate to do such a thing. Viren orders Claudia to do it instead, to which she quickly obliges by using her dark magic. Viren then goes a step further and anoints himself as king, since the king's sons are thought to be dead, and he claims that before he died, the king told Viren that he was like a brother to him, which is just blatantly not true, considering the king made Viren get on his knees before he died and belittled him by calling him a servant.
In his final hours, Hero called me his brother.
Meanwhile, Rayla talks to Callum about his powers, but more importantly, about his stormball conduit that he got from Claudia. She explains the different sources of power to him: the sun, the moon, the stars, earth, sky, and ocean. And that something that powerful mages do in order to harness the energy more readily is to have different conduits on their person at all times, or else they would only be able to do certain spells at certain times. For instance, the blow spell that Callum did on the smoke dogs would only have worked for him if there were an active storm happening, if it weren't for his storm cloud conduit ball. This is incredibly exciting to Callum, as he has never had his own thing that he's good at. He's felt looked down upon as a prince since he isn't even born related to the king, and he's never been good at the tasks they've given him, such as sword fighting or fighting strategies. In his excitement, he tells Rayla of a box he knew to be located in the Winter Lodge not far from the castle. The box has all the symbols of power on it, and he's curious if it's another conduit. Rayla agrees to help him get it, but things don't quite go as planned for them. Upon entering, the princes are swarmed by the people who were supposed to be looking out for them once they arrived. This is the cabin that Callum was told to hide in when the king wanted them both sent away. It appears to be their aunt, for when she shows up leading the force, all seems to be well, and she's excited to see them. The princes distract the guards while Rayla continues her journey inside the cabin, eventually finding the cube that Callum was so adamant about. This is when she gets caught. She attempts to fend off her attacker, but to no avail. After being tied up, she's able to break free and begin fighting once more. Before being captured, Callum does some quick thinking, telling all of the guards that Rayla will kill him and Ezran if they don't let them all go. But as they boat away, it's clear that their aunt plans on sending someone after them from afar to kill Rayla whenever he can.
Track them, but stay out of sight. And when you see an opportunity, free them.
Upon leaving, Rayla questions why Callum wouldn't just tell them the truth. He explains that too many humans wouldn't understand the importance of this act, and they'd try to do something else with this egg other than return it. Whether that be to smash it, eat it, or use it for magical abilities. Rayla understands this and drops it, although still a little hurt that he made her the bad guy in their scenario. The episode ends with Viren about to be crowned, but right before the crown lands on his head, the prince's aunt rushes into the kingdom on horseback, proclaiming that the two princes live. Viren doesn't look too happy about it though. Episode 5, An Empty Throne. Our next episode begins with Viren sucking the life out of a butterfly. Not sure what kind of evil Mother Rapunzel situation that was, but we'll surely get to it eventually. Back to Callum, Ezran, and Rayla. They find that the box that Rayla had grabbed for Callum glows when certain objects get near it. It glows blue on the sky symbol when the sky ball is close, and it glows white on the moon symbol when put close to Rayla, probably because she's a moon elf.
This doesn't end well for you.
None of them knows what to do with that information, so for now it remains a mystery. The three of them head off on their journey on a boat. Rayla hates boats and water, but she sucks it up for the good of the group. On their journey, they begin to chat. Ezran and Callum explain to Rayla that the reason bait's name is bait is because glow toads are commonly used as bait because they're incredibly delicious, making them the favorite treat of many deep-sea creatures. Bait isn't allowed in the water because of this. On a deeper level, Rayla tells the boys that both of her parents are dead. Before they can dive into that subject, they fly off a waterfall, causing all of them to capsize, including Bait. Rayla makes it to the shore just in time to see Bait being hounded by a gigantic sea creature. Rayla attempts to warn the boys, but neither of them can hear her, meaning that she has to suck up her fears and rescue Bait for them, which she heroically does. Once on shore, she confesses to them that her parents aren't actually dead. She just hates them and considers them to be shameful cowards. When the elves were supposed to guard the dragon egg, her parents fled after seeing the damage that the humans were capable of, bringing shame upon the entire family. She tells the boys that her journey with the egg isn't just about bringing the egg back to its home, but it's a redemption journey for her bloodline and soul. Meanwhile, Viren is up to no good, and the prince's aunt, Amaya, knows it. She doesn't trust Viren, loudly suspecting that he's trying to take over the throne now that the king is dead. And she's not wrong. She's insistent that the throne stays empty until the princes are found, but Viren is adamant in the fact that a throneless kingdom is a kingdom destined to fall, especially with a war on the way. After Viren finds out just how much Amaya despises him, he agrees to allow a search party for the lost kids. When Amaya volunteers to do it herself, Viren disputes it, strategizing that she would be better equipped to help them fight at the front lines. Amaya appoints Commander Gren to lead them instead. Once Amaya leaves, Viren has other plans. He locks Gren in the dungeon and appoints his own son to the task force. The episode ends with a shot of Runen, the leader of the Moonshadow Elf Assassins, still being tied up in their dungeon as well. Episode 6, Through the Ice. Through the Ice begins with Rayla being attacked by the bounty hunter that Amaya sent after them. Thankfully, Rayla is able to survive the attack, but not emotionally, as the hunter laughs at Rayla for thinking she could ever be friends with the two boys, even though her people killed their father. After avoiding the hunter, Rayla is deeply troubled by this news, as she knows it to be true. Throughout their journey, the boys don't allow her to hold the egg for them, even though it's incredibly heavy. She asks them why they don't trust her, as it would be easy for her to just grab the egg away, but she chooses not to in order for them to feel safe. Also, she knows that if two human princes returned the egg, it would mean a lot more than it would for her to do it alone. At the end of the day, all three of them are just trying to stop the war. The boys still don't allow her to have it, even after she explains to them her armband. The bands that the Moonshadow Elves use when assassinating people are an oath. They vow that they will kill their targets, and if they don't do it in time, then their bands will get tighter and tighter until their hands fall off. She is willing for her hand to come off in order not to kill Ezran, meaning she's really committed to being their friend through the whole journey. Before the boys can discuss with her further, an avalanche befalls them, Ezran and the egg land on a frozen lake. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Ezran hands the egg to Callum, who attempts to hand it to Rayla, but because of her bad hand, she drops it, which causes the ice to crack. Ezran jumps in after the egg, and the other two wait to pull him back up once he's done. In the end, all of them are safe. Before she had tried to take the egg, she told the boys of the hunter, and she attempted to tell them of their father, but the situation escalated too quickly, so she still had to reveal that. Back at the castle, Viren tells his son that if it comes down to it, he needs to kill the prince and make it look like an accident. He then tells Claudia that if a choice has to be made between saving the boys and saving the egg, then she must choose the egg above all else. He told both of them to not tell the other of their secret plans, which draws an awkward rift between the two close siblings, and also weirds them out that their father is acting this way, as they both like the young princes.
Did Dad say anything strange to you?
Episode 7, The Dagger and the Wolf. The egg has become dim since it was submerged in cold water for so long, so the three go into a nearby city to see if anyone there can help them. While in the square, they witness a man using what appears to be an incredibly hot blade to win battles and get money from bets. Rayla explains that the blade he has been using is a special blade from elves that is able to stay just as hot as when it was first smelted for thousands of years. While talking about it, they get the idea that she could use it to cut off her rope. But upon a couple of tries, it ends up not working, and now humans are after her because the guy who owned it realizes that she looked a little funky.
No, you're an elf.
Fine, I'm an elf.
While Rayla is on her quest for freedom, the two boys visit a local horse doctor who tells the boys that the only way for the egg to live is a miracle, but that a miracle happened several years prior. The boys then go to meet a girl and her wolf. She explains to them that while her wolf seems fine now, when she first got the wolf, its leg had to be amputated, and her family wanted to kill it. In order to save her life, she ran into the Forbidden Forest and found refuge within a cave. A magical being appeared and saved her wolf, but before she could see the being or say thank you, it had already disappeared. With this knowledge, the boys along with Rayla run into the forest, evading a horde of angry humans as they flee. Episode 8, Cursed Caldera. The three of them begin climbing the mountain, and they run into Ellis and Ava, the little girl and her wolf from the previous episode. They tell the three that they'll help guide them to the area where the miracle occurred, but at the end of the episode, Ezran mysteriously tells them that there actually isn't a magical healer.
Even if we make it to the rim, it doesn't matter. There is no miracle healer.
Meanwhile, Viren attempts to integrate Runan, but nothing works. Before he gets rid of Runan, he asks him what the magical mirror does that he and Claudia have been trying to activate since taking it from the Dragon Kingdom. Runan ominously states, "You've found pure evil, something worse than death." After his cryptic message, Viren takes Runan's soul and places it within a coin. Commander Gren is the only one who witnesses Viren's cruelty, as he's still down in the dungeon when it occurs. Episode 9, Wonderstorm. Our finale of Book 1 begins with Ezran explaining himself from our previous episode. He informs the group that he can understand animals, and that Ellis's wolf, Ava, is saying there isn't actually a magic healer. Callum refuses to believe this, though, as apparently Ezran has claimed his magical capabilities before, and that all it did was cause Callum to get soaking wet from a waterfall after some raccoons told Ezran that there was treasure behind it. Rayla is frustrated with Callum, as he needs to have more faith in his brother, but with no other choice than to try and find a healer, the group proceeds while heeding to Ezran's strange warning.
I saw something. A face in the dark.
The three inevitably make it up the mountain, and upon reaching the tree that Ellis spoke of, an elf flies down to them. Rayla is immediately annoyed as she knows exactly what the woman is, an illusionist elf. She can make illusions that seem incredibly real, but they aren't real creatures. The illusionist explains that she protects the mountain, which is why she makes the scary creatures to ward off humans. She tells the group that a few years ago she made an illusion for Ava, and then enchanted her collars so that the illusion would always stay. She did this because she saw that Ava had a strong heart and would survive just fine with one less leg. Ezran, exasperated, informs the elf of the situation at hand. She tells the group that the only way to save the egg now is for it to hatch, which can only be done in the heart of a raging storm. The three look around at the clear sky when Callum gets an idea. He then proceeds to throw his storm sphere on the ground, creating an explosion of a storm. He does end up working through the dragon, Ozymandias. Meanwhile, Claudia and Soren are still in search of the group. Claudia devises a plan, a spell, that will show them the way to the group. She and Soren climb to the tallest mountain nearby and send their spell soaring. When it reaches the group, it appears to be beautiful floating orbs, and they all rejoice. However, the illusory elf seems to know exactly what the beam means, as she seems incredibly worried. The episode ends with Viren seeing the beam as well, with pride all over his face, and weirdly looking like a devil after his soul exploits that occurred in some of our most recent episodes. Book 2, Sky, Episode 1, A Secret and a Spark. Amaya is shown fighting at the border just as Viren had instructed. She appears to be fighting off Sunfire elves, the same elves that made the ever-hot blade that was shown in the previous episode as the tool Rayla tried to break her binds with. After the short POV, we're thrown back into the mission, except Callum wants to stay with Lujane, the illusory moon shadow elf, for a bit longer, as he'd like to see the moon nexus. Rayla is insistent that they continue their journey, understandably so, as they just got flashed with a beacon, no doubt screaming negative energy at Rayla. But she eventually agrees to let them stay for one extra day, in order for Callum to be happy. And he is. Lujane takes him under her wing, but she also bursts his mage bubble. She explains to him that while he was able to do magic while holding his storm conduit sphere, humans aren't able to do magic naturally without that assistance. The creatures that are from, or born in Xadia, are given a piece of their elemental magic at birth. The essence is ingrained in their very being, so they automatically know the secret of their primal source. The secrets of the magic are inherited and hard to explain, something most of them don't even notice. Humans, on the other hand, are born with nothing. Callum asks Lujane about the magic that Claudia has done, which Lujane calls an abomination. Humans who use dark magic kill and suck the magic out of creatures in order to harness their connections to bind to the hands of humans. It's here that Callum decides that he doesn't want to dabble in dark magic. Lujane leads Callum to the moon nexus, a huge lake that reflects the moon perfectly, illuminating the entire area in iridescent moonlight. Callum asks her to explain the secrets of the moon, to which she does her best. But nothing quite sticks with Callum. He's convinced that while he wasn't born with the innate knowledge of the magical conduits, that he'd be willing to do anything in his power to learn them, hoping that one day he will have a shot at doing magic without needing a conduit, which Lujane says is impossible. Meanwhile, we're also shown Viren's perspective, and the evil that he continues to get himself into. He insists that he should be put as king regent until the princes return. He also proclaims war on Xadia as he doesn't trust them. He doesn't think that the attack on the king will be the only one, and that they should be thinking of a game plan before more disasters strike. Literally nobody in their kingdom agrees with him, shunning his ideas and disagreeing with him about his war strategies. They all want to wait for the true princes to return before making rash decisions. Frustrated with the lack of support, Viren decides to send out letters to the surrounding kingdoms. Letters that name him the regent and that an urgent meeting is to be held.
You will send these to the leaders of the other 4 kingdoms immediately.
The episode ends with a surprise appearance. Damn, these kids move fast. Claudia and Soren are already at their base, but they find Rayla first, attacking on sight and aiming to kill. Episode 2, Half Moon Lies. Thankfully, before any true harm could be done, Callum arrives and breaks it up, happy to see his old friends and insisting that they can all get along. He invites the two back to their campsite, even with Rayla being incredibly suspicious of the two. The siblings are determined to complete the mission that their father had assigned them, but are perplexed as to what to do when they find that the egg has already been hatched. After setting a game plan, they both decide that they'll do whatever it takes to sway the princes into returning home. Mind you, Claudia still doesn't know that Soren was told to somehow kill the princes. Soren ends up lying to the boys, saying how their father is so excited to see them return home, even though their father is dead and Claudia knows it. She's disgusted with Soren's lack of empathy and shuns him for lying to their friends in such a horrible way. Soren takes it a step further, making a fun game, zipline, where he wants Ezran to have a good time, aka fall to his death in the middle of the zipline due to Soren sawing off the rope. As Soren's father said, accidents happen, right? Wrong. Rayla finds Soren before any harm comes to Ezran. She takes it a step further, insisting that Soren should go on it next, and then she purposefully flicks the rope, horrifying him in the process. Rayla attempts to tell Callum of what she witnessed today, but she hastily explains it, and she ends up sounding a bit paranoid herself.
Callum, I know I'm not explaining it well, but you just have to look me in the eyes and trust me.
Claudia takes a different path to gain the prince's trust and sway them to come home. Flirtation. As we found out in the first season, Callum is head over heels in love with Claudia. Because of this, she flirts with Callum all day and allows him to take her on a moonlit date at the Moon Nexus. As the two lean in to kiss, Claudia decides to be a good person, as her guilt was becoming too much to bear. She tells Callum the truth about the king, exposing that Rayla has been hiding the truth this whole time. Episode 3, Smoke and Mirrors. Callum storms past Rayla, determined to tell Ezran the truth, but the second that he sees Ezran sleeping peacefully in bed, he realizes that he cannot. How can he hurt someone he loves by telling them something that will damage him forever? Callum understands Rayla at this moment, forgiving her, and stating that he also won't be able to tell Ezran about their father. He also begins to believe Rayla's suspicions of the siblings, as he now knows that Soren purposefully lied to him in order to try and make him go back to the castle. Meanwhile, Viren finally got that cursed mirror to start working. It appears to be a smoke and mirrors type situation. It shows him someone else's room, connecting the two mirrors. Viren sits at the mirror for seemingly hours. He even falls asleep there. It's only when he senses movement that he gets up again, face to face with a strange-looking elf, one with stars lining their body and a star-splattered galaxy robe. However, it becomes apparent that the elf does not see him, at least not yet. Back with the situation at hand. Claudia and Soren, unable to convince the princes to return home with them, humbly ask that they join them on their journey instead. Callum agrees to it before talking to Rayla, but when she finds out, she insists that they try and figure out a different plan in order for them to remain safe on their journey. Rayla approaches Lujane, asking for her assistance. The plan is to make illusions of the prince, Bait, and Zim to see what Soren chooses to do once they begin their journey. It doesn't take long for him and Claudia to go insane, sicko mode on their fake asses, affirming Rayla's suspicions. The real princes, Rayla, and the animals are able to escape on Lujane's flying peacock creature, but only because of the help of the bounty hunter that was tasked by Amaya to kill Rayla. He notices that the princes are working with Rayla, and that the siblings are putting them in grave danger. While they're attacking, he ends up distracting them long enough for them to be able to make a safe escape. Since it's 2 against 1, Soren and Claudia come to an agreement that the bounty hunter is now a traitor of the kingdom due to his interference in their missions. Episode 4, Voyage of the Ruthless. A full-on battle occurs between Amaya's soldiers and the Sunfire Elves, with Amaya herself seemingly battling their leader. Meanwhile, Lujane's peacock falls out of the sky when it gets too far away from the Moon Nexus, landing the group in a random forest. In order to get to Xadia, they must cross the ocean, and with no way to fly over it anymore, they must find a ride. Rayla decides she'll become human Rayla again, which just consists of her putting a hood on her horns. Callum isn't so impressed, so he sets out to find a sailor who won't notice Rayla's, strangeness. And he finds the perfect guy, a blind sailor. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. He agrees to take the group out on the ocean, but explains that in reality, they should wait a few days for a bad storm to pass. That, or they could leave immediately and try to beat the storm, which of course is what they end up wanting to do.
Welcome to me water home, the Ruthless.
To no surprise of the captain, they do in fact get caught in the storm, forcing them to port at a nearby island. Callum, who hasn't and probably will never get over his love of magic, decides that he'll attempt to connect with the secrets of the sky. He sets off on the island alone with Zim, hoping to find his answers. He walks to the top of the lightning tower and grasps the rod, drawing the most lightning to the area. He grips it firmly, hoping that upon electrocuting himself, he will absorb the knowledge of the sky power source without having to be born with it. He chickens out though, and right before leaving, Zim gets struck by lightning. Callum carries Zim back, but instead of being injured, he seems to be better than ever. He even has a more electric feel to him, zapping electricity in his mouth and such. Rayla is thankful that Callum didn't go through with his crazy plan. Even if it disappoints Callum, at least he isn't dead chasing his ambitions. Back at the castle, Viren's secret friend acknowledges him for the first time, making him do a strange ritual that ends with him slicing his hand open. He hesitates when it gets to that level, telling his strange friend that he needs to think about it first. He leaves the chamber and marches towards the mail delivery guy. He's annoyed that he hasn't heard any news from the other kingdoms, but is informed that while nobody could find him, the other kingdoms did, in fact, agree to visit with him. He goes back down into his chamber, and instead of finishing the mysterious ritual, he puts a sheet over the mirror to cover the elf up. Episodes 5 and 6, Breaking the Seal and Heart of a Titan. The next 2 episodes are essentially told through flashbacks, with Viren talking to the other kingdoms during their council meeting, and the letter that the king had given Callum before he died. Callum's mother was a strong warrior of a woman. She had Callum with her first husband, who had passed, and then she got married to the king, having Ezran with him. They were a happy family, one that Viren supported fully as well. He and the king had such a close bond that the king even insisted that Viren join him in his official portrait. One day, the kingdom was approached by a neighboring kingdom, Durin. Durin came to ask for assistance, as they don't have enough food to feed their kingdom for the winter. Desperately trying to save some of their people, they asked for nothing except assistance in feeding the mouths of their people. The king happily agreed, much to the discomfort of Viren. Viren adamantly told the king that it was a horrible idea, as Catullus barely had enough food to feed themselves this winter. That, yes, they can technically give away some of their food, but that just means that some of their own people are going to have to die alone with Durins. The king is fine with that, saying that he'd rather they both suffer together than one kingdom leave the other to perish. In order to come up with a solution, Viren begins researching. He comes up with a miracle solution. Apparently, there's a dark magic spell that can only be done with the heart of a lava titan. Once the heart is secured, they can cast a spell which will heat the land, causing perfect weather for months, perfect enough for farming, blessing the ground with fertility and strength. The king's wife, Callum's mother, Queen Sarai, is against the idea, asking questions like, is the titan sentient? Does it have a family? If it doesn't have a family, is it the last of its kind? The king doesn't care, blinded by the need to save the thousands of people who reside in the kingdom. Together the king, Sarai, Amaya, Sarai's sister, Viren, and the 2 queens from Durin all go together to fight the lava titan, and they're successful. Amaya deals the final blow, but her eye was messed up in the process. Before leaving, Viren insists that they leave all of the wounded. Storm, the old dragon guardian, protects all of Xadia from dusk till dawn, meaning that at dawn, they're all destined to die. The king will not have this, especially after his wife just said that she'd wait with Amaya and they'd come home together no matter what. He decides to take all of the wounded with him, but this does inevitably cause them to still be in Xadia by the time Storm arrives. The humans try their best against the dragon, but in the end, it's just Viren and Storm. Sarai notices the situation and decides to go back for Viren, as he's the only one who can perform the spell they came there for anyway, and she's successful, but does end up sacrificing her life in the process. Storm killed her easily, leaving only Viren when he made it to the group. During the fighting, the 2 queens of Durin are murdered as well, showing why their daughter is now in their spot on the council. A funeral is held, and honorable statues are made to remember the spirits of the strong queens and mothers who died to save the land. Viren's spell does work, with hundreds of thousands of subjects saved. Cutting back to reality, Viren has been talking to the other kingdoms, hoping to win them over to his side, with the proposition to attack Xadia. Their decision must be unanimous, and to Viren's annoyance, the only one in his way is the daughter of the 2 queens from Durin, much younger than the other regents and rulers, but just as wise, if not more so. She hears what Viren has said, the whole story soaked in, and she still chooses not to attack. Why would she sacrifice 1,000,000 men to go after a battle that isn't hers to begin with? Her logic is this: if her mothers went on a journey to save 100,000, then why should she turn around and lead an army to destroy just as many? Viren is incredibly angry at her decision, begging and threatening the other leaders to stand up to her as they all are adults and she isn't. But Anya is wise beyond her years, and the other rulers know it. There cannot be anything done with what she has chosen, leaving Viren no choice but to leave with no supporters yet again. Episode 7, Fire and Fury. As Soren and Claudia's journey continues, they're hoping to drop their stalker, Corvus, off at the nearest outpost so they can continue to search for the princes in peace. While traveling, they stumble upon a city that is being scouted by a red dragon. Soren, annoyed with the city for not showing its strength by attacking the dragon, decides to fire at it, angering the dragon. It now burns down the entire city, only being stopped when Claudia enchants another arrow to hit the dragon directly. She's successful in her shot, and the dragon falls near Rayla, Callum, and Ezran. The children rush to see the scene, taking the arrow out and attempting to get the dragon to fly away once more. But it appears to be incapacitated. The children can hear the crowd approaching, so they hide. Rayla is insistent that she'd like to fight off the crowd to ensure the dragon's safety, but Callum isn't convinced that they'd win the battle, especially considering that Claudia and Soren are in the front lines. They head back to the cave, but with Rayla still not convinced. She proclaims that she must go back to the dragon once more.
Protecting that dragon doesn't just feel like the right thing to do, it feels like the right thing for me to do. It's where I'm meant to be.
Callum hesitates as there's nothing special about him. There's nothing he can really technically do. But with the love in his heart, he makes the grave decision to use dark magic instead. Callum races to the scene with Rayla, already beginning to fight the humans. He turns the dragon's chains into serpents that attack the group, causing them all to flee. Well, all of them except Claudia and Soren. While continuing to interfere, Soren ends up getting slapped with the dragon's tail, slamming his spine into a boulder behind him, and crumbling to the floor. Claudia goes after Zim, who's being held by Ezran. She's set on her task, but is called back to reality when Soren starts yelling for her help. Claudia quickly runs over to Soren, who she finds cannot move or feel any part of his body besides his neck and his head. While she's distracted, the children flee, with the dragon going off in its own direction as well. Meanwhile, Viren has been caught by Opeli, the woman who was in opposition to him being regent in the first place. It's revealed that Viren has claimed himself to be King Regent, putting his seal on the letters to summon the other kingdoms meeting. Opeli threatens Viren that he'll be taken off the council, if not worse, because of what he's done. So it's a good thing that Viren has his secret little friend. Viren's mysterious mirror visitor is revealed to be Aravas, but no other information is given about him yet. After finishing the ritual that Viren had originally opted out of, a gross caterpillar-looking bug is given to him, and it allows Aravas to speak with Viren, as he has been unable to do so before. Episode 8, The Book of Destiny. After using the dark magic in the previous episode, Callum is clearly not okay. His eyes are black, and he can't stand up straight. It doesn't take long for him to pass out altogether. In his dreams, he's offered the key box, but only with dark magic displayed. Not all of the elements, as it normally has. The person offering him the box is himself. His clone is insistent that dark magic is the only way. That Callum's destiny is already written in stone, and there's no way to change it. Callum is so close to accepting the dark magic stone, giving in to his own whispers and blinded by the great power of human manipulation and greed. His father, the dead king, interrupts him though. He yells at Callum, reminding him that he can write his own story, that fate is a lie, and he can do what he feels he must. Callum actually listens to his father, shunning his clone and refusing to pick up the dark magic box. His dream then shifts, his body morphing into a sail itself as he attempts to figure out the sky primal, until he crashes into the ocean, drifting to his death. Meanwhile, in the land of the awake, Clovis has found his way to Rayla and Ezran, declaring his loyalty to the king and bowing at Ezran's feet. Ezran obviously immediately knows what this means. Horrified and distraught with the news of his father's passing, Ezran demands that the two let him go on a walk by himself to cool down from the situation. He ends up stumbling upon Claudia in the nearest town, who's frantically looking for a cure for Soren's broken body. She had taken him to the nearest doctor, but there was no cure for being paralyzed from the neck down, unfortunately. Claudia and Ezran chat as the old friends that they are, with seemingly no malice between them. Back at the castle, Viren decides to do some research to figure out just who Aravas is in order to know what or who he's dealing with. But there are no answers. As soon as he finds a book that mentions Aravas' name, the book scrambles the words or makes its ink to bleed all over the page. Viren accuses Aravas of the tricks he's been conducting, but he gets no answers. Only that Aravas is in his service and will help him take over if he lets him. Episode 9. Breathe. Ezran and Claudia have a heart-to-heart. Claudia opens up to Ezran about her own familial troubles. When she was 7, her parents got divorced, and she was asked to choose which parent to go with. Soren had chosen her father, but before she got to pick, her mother had told her to stay with Soren so that they could always protect each other. Since then, she has never seen her mother, and she might as well be dead. She mourns with Ezran, respecting the old king and insisting that she and Soren were just following her father's instructions. Ezran understands, and the two continue to walk together. Eventually, they make it to a beautiful forest where baby deer roam. Claudia sends Ezran away before she commits the sins she needs in order to save Soren from his plunder, which involves killing some of, if not all of, the baby deer. Before the scene cuts out, we hear her mutter something about them being young, free, and spry, concocting a perfect spell to resurrect her brother's nerves and muscles forevermore. Back in Callum's dreamscape, his visions are a constant test until he can't take it anymore. He begins to have what appears to be a panic attack, in his dream and in real life. Rayla begins to panic. At first, during his dreams, she was annoyed with him, saying that he deserved to be tortured in order to repent of the magic that he had done. But the longer he's in his sleep, the more worried she gets, making it blatantly obvious that she feels more for him than just a casual friendship. During his panic attack in the dream, he's visited by his mother, who tells him that the secret is to breathe. All he has to do is breathe.
Take a deep breath and just be.
Upon waking up, Ezran is ecstatic, as he believes he has officially mastered the Sky Primal, and will be able to do the Sky's magic without his Storm Conduit. At first, Rayla doesn't believe him, but after he's able to do the breathing spell that he knows how to do, she is beyond proud of him. Hard conversations are to be had between Callum and Ezran about their fallen father. It ended with Ezran delivering a hard blow. He has decided that in order to be the king his father would want him to be, he needs to return to the throne and begin ruling immediately. Callum and Rayla protest, along with Clovis, but nothing they say seems to sway his opinion on the situation. Clovis vows to return the king home safely, serving as his guide and right-hand man for the time being. Viren, still upset with the other kingdoms for not following him into his plans for battle, devises a spell that creates fake moon shadow assassins, demanding that his puppets bring terror to the 4 other kingdoms that didn't side with him in the voting. Not long after this, Viren is found by the royal guard and sentenced to prison for the fraudulent crimes that he partook in. Meanwhile, Rayla, Callum, and Zim have made it to the border of Xadia, but there's a secret moon path that they must follow in order to get over the lava river safely. The stones that won't sink right away light up from the light of the moon, which is what the 3 begin to use. Not long after they jump on their first few boulders, does an unexpected shadow fall across the stones. Zim, panicking, calls out to Ezran, which is something we didn't know either of them could do. In a panic, Ezran explains to Zim that he must fly up to create a shadow for them to continue to pass. In his panicked state, Zim flies for the first time. He struggles at first, but Callum uses his breath spell to send Zim a boost of air energy for him to complete his journey upwards. Zim is able to create a shadow just in time, rescuing the group, allowing them to complete their journey into Xadia's borders. Unfortunately for them, when the sun rises, they stumble upon the Soul Regum, the dragon from the intro of the series, and a massive dragon at that. Book 3, Sun, Episode 1, Soul Regum. Book 3 begins with a backstory about the Soul Regum. Long ago, when Sol Regem was still king of the dragons, he had a plethora of hate for humans, especially those who partook in dark magic. Sol was meeting with a human, a middle-aged man with long black and white hair. He held the staff that Viren holds now in the present time. Filled with dark magic and power, Sol insisted that the human lay down his staff and quit dark magic forever, but the human insisted that he would never lay down a weapon gifted to him by one of the Great Ones. Because of the human's lack of cooperation, Sol threatened to destroy the city filled with innocent humans, ones who didn't commit any crimes against magic. When the human continued to refuse, Sol began to fly towards the town, stopping only when he noticed the large tornado of darkness pooling around him. Enraged, Sol circled back around, firing a melting blast at the human, while the human simultaneously shot his own blast of fire back. Sol's was much larger than the human's, obliterating him on sight, and while the human was already dead, his blast hit his target, burning the eyes off of Sol, leaving him blind for the rest of his life. Back in the present time, Rayla is extremely cautious not to disturb Sol, wanting her, Callum, and Zim to pass by unnoticed. But this proves to be impossible, even with Sol being blind. The two eventually decide to tell Sol the truth, that they're traveling together and plan to return the Dragon Prince to his mother. But Sol isn't happy about Callum, saying that while Rayla and Zim are free to pass by without a hitch, he plans on killing Callum. If Rayla and Zim choose to stay by his side, then he will kill both of them as well. This is, of course, because when he sniffed Callum, he proclaimed that he smelt death, meaning he smelt the use of dark magic in Callum's soul, maiming him as evil as the humans that have come before him. Together, Callum and Rayla devise a plan to sneak past Sol, using Callum's scent to trap Sol in the rocks, using his garland head shape to wedge him long enough for them to escape. Meanwhile, Aunt Amaya is still hard at work in the lava, fighting the Sunfire Elves. She eventually gets swarmed after valiantly saving their leader from falling into the lava. As a soldier, it's disrespectful to kill someone when they are unable to defend themselves. So instead of killing her out of convenience, Amaya lifted her up, knowing that it was going to outnumber her and put her in a bad position. The episode ends with Ezran making his grand reappearance, taking his rightful place at the throne. Episode 2. The Crown. Viren's evil schemes pay off in this next episode. The Crown. Now that Ezran is back on the throne, he has to deal with everything that a king would. At his young age, nonetheless. He's given a mound of mail that hasn't been opened since the king's passing. He's then presented with 2 traitors. It's just Claudia and Soren. And after all of that, Prince Cassif of Neolandia makes an appearance, wanting to unite all of their kingdoms and wage war on Xadia to avenge their fathers. Viren's little assassins he created, yeah, they were successful, and the kingdoms are ready to wage war now that all of their kingdoms have been threatened. Unfortunately, none of them know that their loved one's death was not at the hands of the residents of Xadia, but rather the nasty fingers of humankind. Ezran understandably gets overwhelmed by all the requests that he's been asked to make. He ends up taking a step back from everything in order to dissect his own emotions. It's here that he's approached by Opeli. She informs the king that while he may feel as though everything rests on his shoulders, he's still just a child at the end of the day, and nobody can be mad at him for that. It's not fair that he's forced to grow up this quickly, and if he'd like to choose a king's regent for the time being, then nobody will think he's weak for that. Ezran takes this to heart, but doesn't comply. He releases Claudia and Soren, knowing the two as his friends and stating that they shouldn't have to pay for the crimes their father committed. He then stares Cassif dead in the eyes and announces that Catullus will not be joining him in any wars against Xadia. Nobody will have to fight if they don't want to. Ezran takes it a step further and tries to convince people to choose peace after explaining the whole Zim, saving the peace situation. But nothing seems to work. Cassif leaves angry, still not satisfied with his answer from Catullus. Claudia and Soren are incredibly relieved to be released, and Opeli, along with Corvus, looks on with pride. Episode 3. Ghost. Our next episode begins with us learning more about Aunt Amaya's current whereabouts and imminent situation. She appears to be in a fire prison, but she's being treated fairly well. Her main interrogator, Junai, has realized that Amaya can only speak in sign language, so she has an interpreter on hand at all times. And while Junai treats Amaya with a bit of respect, Amaya is still not behaving nicely, telling Junai that she can shove it where the sun doesn't shine, etc. Because of the way Amaya is acting, she decides to take her to the queen, Kahessa, also known as the sister of Junai. Kessa is much ruder to the human captive, emphasizing her desire to simply kill her instead of dealing with her attitude. Junai has grown fond of Amaya, though insistent that her sister is trying to see past Amaya's attitude. Kessa decides to allow for the sun's fate to be cast upon Amaya, blasting her with a powerful sunray to see her true nature, and she passes, while almost going blind in the process. Amaya is allowed to live, with Junai gratefully taking her away.
Just take her. Thank you, sister.
Meanwhile, we finally reached Rhea's homeland, a secret Moonshadow Elf oasis. Rayla performs her secret key situation with Callum, allowing them to both frolic in the Moonshadow area. But something is definitely off. None of the elves say anything to the group as they pass, not even a second glance. When Rayla realizes this, she tries to get someone's attention, but she finds all of their facial features have been erased. Panicked, Rayla looks around and realizes that the ghost spell has been cast upon her, meaning that none of them can see or hear her, and because Callum came in with her, he's facing the same treatment. Rayla searches for someone she believes would never cast the ghost spell onto her, Runan's husband, but she cannot see his face either. Rayla stares at him for a while, pondering what to do, when suddenly he notices her in the reflection of his blade. He quickly undoes the spell, engulfing Rayla in a big hug, and apologizing for casting her out. Runan and his husband were best friends with Rayla's parents, and ever since the two elves fled their duties guarding the dragon egg, they have watched over Rayla in their place. Rayla apologizes for the fate of Runan, insisting that she had good reason, and that she didn't flee from the elves. She shows him Zim, but nothing will ever heal the wound in his heart. He tells Rayla that while she may not have abandoned Runan, she'll still be the reason that he's gone. Before putting the ghost spell back into place, he calls for some transportation for Rayla, Callum, and Zim to travel across Xadia faster than on foot. He also gives Rayla a moon opal necklace, to know that he will always be with her, even when she's not home. The three head off into Xadia Woods, with Rayla feeling incredibly injured, nursing the loss of her homeland. Back at the kingdom, Claudia and Soren visit their father, now imprisoned. Soren comes to his father, confessing that he told Claudia of Viren's instructions to kill the princes, but Viren denies knowing what Soren is talking about. Viren twists his memory, making him look like silly Soren, convincing Claudia that Soren was just being dumb as per usual. Episode 4, The Midnight Desert. Cassif makes an appearance again, this time with an ultimatum rather than a question. He explains to Ezran and the rest of the Royal Council that 3 surrounding kingdoms have felt personally attacked by Xadia, and they will storm the border the next day, and if Ezran doesn't comply to join, then the 3 kingdoms will wage war on Catolis first. Ezran strikes a deal with Cassif. If the soldiers do not wish to fight in the war against Xadia, then they are allowed to leave the army and return home with their families. In return, Ezran will step down as king for now, putting himself in the dungeon and releasing Viren in his place, which was one of Cassif's requirements. Little does he know, Viren was the one to kill his family, right?
And their armies have arrived in Catolis.
You dare violate our borders!
Rayla and Callum aren't having much more fun. The two run into, or more like they were found by, Nyx, a skywalking elf. She's there to help the two of them travel to the Dragon Queen. Well, at first. She wants to take Zim herself and fly him all the way home. But after Rayla and Callum insist that they must all go together, she agrees to go on foot, or rather, Amblerfoot. The 3 have to cross the Midnight Desert, a fully black sand desert haunted by soul snakes. These deadly creatures suck the soul out of any creature, creating a husk of a being that the creature once was. In order to avoid the soul snakes and the heat of the sun on the black sand, Nyx calls her Ambler, which essentially looks like a way cooler version of a camel. During the daytime, there's no fear of the soul snakes because they're nocturnal, The group should be able to make it into an oasis with a protective border before dusk. And they do! The three go to sleep for the night, but Rayla can't stop crying. Callum attempts to comfort her, but she runs to a nearby pond in hopes of just being alone. Callum follows her and gives her a little pep talk, calling her the most wonderful woman he's ever met, and also labeling her as beautiful. During the heartfelt moment, Rayla kisses him, and Callum is so shocked he doesn't even respond correctly, acting all awkward to the point of them both just choosing to ignore what just happened for now. In their distracted state, they realize that something feels off. The two run back to their camp to find a put-out fire, Zim, Nyx, and the Ambler, and even their rides given to Rayla back in the Moonshadow Elf village. Episode 5, Heroes and Masterminds. Rayla notices their rides outside of the oasis being attacked by soul snakes. She quickly goes to the rescue, but she's only in time for one of them to make it back into the oasis safely. The three must wait until the sun is fully up in order to continue their journey, but they race off as soon as they possibly can. Rayla tracks the Ambler, being able to see the large footsteps in the black sand, and thankfully they're faster than the Ambler, especially when Nyx keeps having to get its foot unstuck from the black sand. Callum and Rayla are initially able to get Zim back, but they forget that Nyx has her own wings, and can literally just fly away with them, which she attempts to do. Zim experiences lightning for the first time, gnawing on Nyx until she's too burnt to hold on. In the process, Zim electrocuted her wings, leaving her unable to fly back to the safety of her Ambler, and she began to be swarmed by soul snakes. Rayla, now annoyed because she must save the enemy, goes on the rescue again, ensuring that Nyx wouldn't be harmed by any of the snakes. Nyx is confused as to Rayla's kindness, especially after she had just blatantly attempted to steal Zim, the glory, and any prizes that may come from returning the long-lost Dragon Prince. Callum is anything but surprised though. He uses this opportunity to explain just how great Rayla is, leaning in for a kiss at the end to really fully send his true feelings towards her. In Catolis, Opeli and Corvus are appalled at the situation currently occurring in their kingdom. The second Viren is released from his prison, and he decides to take over as king, excited to begin his march on Xadia immediately. Corvus quickly runs away with Opeli, as he knows the second the excitement dies down, Viren will arrest every traitor, which will surely include both of them, considering they obviously don't want him to be the one in position of power. While Soren helps them, he then goes down and releases Ezran from his jail cell, carrying him in a bale of hay all the way out of the kingdom and into the woods. It is here that Ezran is reunited with Opeli, Corvus, and even the baker who makes him his jelly tarts every day, all of whom believe Ezran to be the true king of Catolis. It's in this moment of support that Ezran decides to catch back up with Callum and Rayla to continue his journey with the Dragon Prince. Episode 6, Thunderfall. Viren's army sets off to Xadia, and on their way, Erebos asks Viren about how he slew the old Storm King. This is how it went. A couple years after the queen was slain by the Dragon King, Viren finally found the last ingredient to the spell that would allow him to kill the dragon instantly. He was missing a unicorn horn, but he already had the other two ingredients: the blood of the one who loathes the beast the most, King, and the last breath of the one who was slain by them. After the incident occurred, Viren had magically harvested the queen's last breath in hopes that it would one day come in handy. It didn't take much for Viren to convince the king to comply with his plan, so the two set off for vengeance. But the Dragon King wasn't at the border the day that they arrived. Rather, he was at the base of the Storm Dragon's tower. He warned the two humans that he would kill them if they did not leave, but that today was a special day, one in which he'd rather not kill on, implying that his wife had either just given birth or was giving birth at this time. The king and Viren didn't heed the Storm Dragon's warnings, striking him in the chest while he reached out towards his love, becoming a husk of a being trapped in place forevermore. Erebos is impressed at Viren's tenacity, as Erebos wanted to kill the Storm King himself. He hints to Viren about a small detail of himself, that the room Viren found him in was a prison, that Erebos may not leave his immediate area, and that the Storm King was the reason why.
You're imprisoned? Your home looks like no prison I've ever seen.
The army eventually makes its way to Xadia. They're unable to cross the border because it's been completely covered by lava. so Viren uses an incredibly powerful spell to part the lava river, biblically setting hope in the hearts of his army as they head deeper into their journey. Callum and Rayla reach the base of Storm Mountain, sadly looking at the husk of what was once Zim's father. Episode 7, Hearts of Cinder. Aravos guides Viren's decisions, insistent on the idea of taking over the Dragon Queen and Prince in order to gain all recognition in Xadia. Only after that would they take humans seriously. Before they continue towards the Dragon Spire, Aravos says that there is something they need in Lux Aria first, which is where the Sunfire Elves reside. Viren humbly enters the kingdom, asking their queen to allow his armies to pass. Disgusted that he would even bother her with his filthy human requests, Queen Kessa lets the Lightstaff decide for her, and Viren fails miserably, worse than any human she's ever tested. His soul is soaked with signs of dark magic, enough for Kessa to feel the need to exorcise him.
But don't give up hope. You will be purified.
She sits him in front of the sundial, with a bright burst of sunfire light lasering towards him, but before it reaches him all the way, Aravos appears, engulfing a nearby human with his soul and possessing them for only a moment. It's here that he kills Queen Kessa, making hints that he had killed her grandmother the same way. Before all of this went down, Amaya warned Janai that if Viren was in the kingdom, then something horribly wrong was about to occur, but they were too late. Janai entered the scene at the exact moment she watched her beloved sister be crushed into atoms. With the help of Aravos, Viren steals the Sunfire Staff, their main energy source, turning what once appeared as a ball of sunlight into a solar eclipse. He takes the staff back to the army, and with the adrenaline of the battle that he just partook in, he loudly announces that he's ready to transform his army, making them invincible to the harm of fire, and ready for their upcoming battles. Viren volunteers Soren to be the first soldier changed, but Soren, literally horrified of his weird-ass father's transformation, refuses, telling Viren that he's too scared to go through with it. Kasif steps in, taking Soren's place, and turning into, well, that, a molten rock version of what he once was. Soren, knowing he made the right decision, slowly walks away, scared that he isn't completely free of turning into one of those monsters. Claudia notices his absence and follows him, asking him where he's going. He asks Claudia to come with him, saying that he's scared of Viren and doesn't trust him anymore. Claudia is exasperated, not wanting to choose between her father and Soren, just like how she had to choose between Viren and her mother whenever she was younger. She begins to have an anxiety attack, so Soren chooses for her. He says goodbye to her and races off on his horse, leaving Claudia to deal with their father's massive monster army and the dark magic streaking his face.
Now, it is time for all of you to embrace this power!
Callum, Rayla, Zim, and Ezran, who had flown to them on the Moonshadow Phoenix, previously known as Peacock because that's what I assumed it was, make their way up the storm spiral. About 3/4 of the way up, the air begins to get incredibly thin. The humans keep passing out because of it until Ezran figures out what to do. The red dragon they had previously helped, the one that got shot down by Soren earlier in the series, shows up and reveals the breathing secret to Ezran, who quickly gets Callum to perform the breath spell so that they can all return onto their journey. Eventually, the crew makes it all the way up the mountain and is greeted by yet another Sky Elf, but this one doesn't have wings. Episode 8, Dragon Guard. The Sky Elf that greets them is named Ibis. He tells the group that the Dragon Queen has gone into a deep depression, like sickness. She had laid down and hasn't awoken for 10 days, mourning the loss of her son and her beloved husband. Callum and Rayla go to the Queen and attempt to tell her of Zim, but nothing seems to get through to her. Meanwhile, Soren has ridden his horse for the entire night and day to reach the storm spiral. He heads up the tower, but is caught by the same breathing issue. The red dragon is being ridden by Ezran, who quickly picks Soren up and brings him to Callum for him to fix. Once Soren has calmed down and is able to talk again, he tells the group of the approaching danger. That the army isn't a normal army in the slightest, highlighting the monsters that are now walking the earth and heading their way. Ibis is not hopeful. Callum asks him to teach him some of the Sky Elf magic, which Ibis only takes seriously after seeing Callum do some electricity magic. Callum asks him why he doesn't have wings, to which he does a spell, and his arms turn into wings instead. Callum is desperate to learn, but Ibis is not quite interested. He wants Callum, Rayla, and Ezran to run away with Zim in order to protect him from the upcoming army, while he stays behind and attempts to protect the Dragon Queen alone. At first they consider it. Well, Rayla never considers it. She's convinced that it's her destiny to stay by the Dragon Queen and defend her until death, so that she can repent for her parents fleeing. Callum gets frustrated with her, saying that her pride is going to get her killed. The two get in their first lover's quarrel.
More than that, it goes deeper.
Oh, do you have a nicer word for it? Honor? Redemption? It's just pride.
Oh, but Callum ends up fixing it. He enters the lair of the Dragon Queen, and using the moon opal necklace that Rayla had, he uses a moon shadow spell that he had seen Lujane use in order to see the past, and what actually happened between Rayla's parents and the Dragon Egg. The two fought bravely. They stayed there when all of the other elves that were supposed to stay there fled. They fought Viren tirelessly as he was convinced that he needed to kill the Dragon Prince egg in order to truly get vengeance for the befallen queen. Before he could actually kill the egg, Rayla's mother yelled out, convincing Viren that the egg was too valuable even for magic to kill. She is the only reason the prince lived that day. Her and Viren's greed for power. Before Viren left the tower, he turned Rayla's parents into coins just like Runan, making it look like the two of them vanished from their protection points. Callum brings this news to Rayla, and the two make up while deciding that they'll decide if they'll stay and fight or flee together. Once all together, Soren opens up to the children. He explains that he thought he knew Viren his whole life, but when it came down to it, Viren was a true villain, through and through. Soren knows that even if they flee with Zim, Viren will keep coming after them again and again until he finally gets what he wants. Nothing in this world will stop his father, so they must put an end to him right there, right now. While they have the advantage of the spiral on their side, the rest of the group is in agreement, accepting that this might be their final stand. The episode ends with Junai and Aunt Amaya making an appearance, and they didn't come alone. In order to avenge their queen and gain pride back in their city, every single Sunfire Elf arrived on the scene to fight with them. That and the Red Dragon took Ezran to go get some dragon backup as well. While the approaching army was in the distance, they all suited up for battle. Episode 9, The Final Battle. An epic battle ensues, with the kingdom of Durin, the one run by the little girl, coming to back up Ezran, which I think is absolutely adorable. When the battle appears to be almost over, Soren has to choose between his father and Ezran. Viren is holding a spear at Ezran's heart. Soren makes the correct decision, stabbing Viren in the heart before any harm can be done to his friends, which he does right in front of Claudia, brother's actions. Confused as to how he could betray the family so easily, she then looks down on him for being stupid, as the real battle wasn't on the ground the entire time, but rather up in the tower. Rayla was fighting off Viren this entire time. Viren steals Rayla in ice, just like he did her parents, while he goes off onto the roof to deal with Zim once and for all. Thankfully, for all of humanity, bait exists. He gives Rayla a lantern, allowing her to more quickly be able to get out of her ice prison. Thinking fast upon seeing the harm being done to Zim, she tackles Viren off the mountain, seemingly sacrificing herself in the process. Callum, horrified, as he had just reached the top of the mountain upon seeing the atrocity that had just occurred, flings himself off the mountain as well, repeating the spell he had seen Ibis do in the previous episode, hoping to gain wings and save both himself and Rayla. At first nothing happens, but after proclaiming his love to Rayla, the spell works, flying both of them to the safety of the Queen's lair once more, and leaving Viren to fall to his death. The episode ends with the Dragon Queen finally waking up, and it's not just Callum, Ezran, and Rayla there to deliver the good news, but many humans and elves mixed together, happy to be together and getting along. And, of course, Zim.
Is this a dream?
Book 4, Earth, Episode 1, Rebirth Day. Season 4 begins with a 2-year time jump. However, it seemingly begins right where we left off. Half of Claudia's hair is now white, and she seems exhausted. A dirty Viren wakes up, resurrected. Claudia beams with pride and joy, exclaiming that he's alive again. When he asks how many days he's been out, he finds out it hasn't been mere days, but rather 2 years since his death. Claudia tells her father of her adventures while he's been out. Aravas has been whispering to her instead of him, explaining how to resurrect him. Erebos' strange bug friend has crystallized itself, and when it reemerges, it's supposed to help guide them to the one who answers. Supposedly this one who answers will know how to free Erebos from his prison, and they must acquire Erebos to resurrect Viren for real, as now he is on a 30-day time crunch. The spell currently used on him will not last forever, so he only has a small amount of time left.
It's hard to imagine things getting any worse.
Ugh, I know, right?
Before they begin their journey, Claudia introduces Viren to her new boyfriend, Terrestrius, or Terry for short. There's only one problem. Terry is an Earth Blood Elf, which Viren obviously is not a fan of. He's even less of a fan when he finds out that when Terry farts, it smells of petrichor. Petrichor is the smell you smell before it rains. So yeah, Terry's kind of a freak of nature. A fun side note that occurs in this episode is that Janai ends up proposing to Amaya. She hires Sunfire dancers to anoint her marriage proposal. But Amaya assumes they're attacking her with their fire weapons and ends up wiping them all out before she can propose. None of her attacks were fatal, thankfully, so the dancers were just a bit taken aback and weirded out. But overall, the proposal went well, and obviously, Amaya said yes. Back in Catolis, not too much has changed. People seem happier, and there's a more friendly glow to the castle, and everyone's hair is different. With Callum supporting a more grown-up haircut, Corvus's haircut, Soren's hair is longer, and Ezran's hair is put up as well. Callum is now in mage clothes, taking over Viren's old office, and wondering what his large mirror does. For the love of all that is holy, Callum, please stay the innocent boy that you are and leave that mirror alone. A King's Council meeting is about to begin, which consists of the King's closest advisors, Callum, Corvus, Opeli, the Baker, Soren, and of course, Bait. During the meeting, Ezran announced his grand plan to unite Xadia and the surrounding human kingdoms. A dragon festival. Ezran wants to invite the Storm Queen along with Zim to their lands to hold a get-together and the first peaceful human dragon party. After some discussion, the council agrees and they'll happily get to planning. The episode ends with a surprise party thrown for Callum. You may be wondering where Rayla is at this point in the episode. And believe me, I am too. Callum seems sad during his party, and when he's confronted about his feelings by Ezran, he admits that his birthday only reminds him of the last time he saw Rayla. How she's been missing for 2 years as she's been trying to track down Viren, or Claudia, in order to make sure that the two were dead, so that she could live peacefully. Ezran questions Callum's heart, but it seems to be complicated as he still loves her even though he's frustrated, sad, and hurt. Episode 2. Fallen Stars. After reliving his emotions towards Rayla, Callum decides to immerse himself in his studies, mostly regarding the weird mirror. He's ordered a super rare book from Xadia that translates a bunch of elf and old runes, as he cannot decipher what is on the strange mirror. He searches and searches for the runes that he needs, but there isn't even anything similar to the strange symbols displayed on the mirror's border. In frustration, he bangs some ink onto one of the blank pages in the back of his book, only to find that the ink transferred over to the other side in the process. In order to find out what the mirror says, he writes down the runes on one page and waits to see what happens on the other. And it translates. The mirror reads, "In darkness, gaze upon a fallen star." He doesn't know what this means yet, but he's incredibly excited that he's finally got a smidge of one of his answers figured out. Meanwhile, Claudia announces that they'll need Viren's old staff in order to break open the chrysalis. Viren questions why she doesn't already have his staff since she already clearly found his body, to which Claudia explains that while Viren's body fell, that's the only part of him that did. His staff, on the other hand, is still located at the top of the Storm Dragon Spire, so the three begin their climb. But Viren doesn't handle it very well. Halfway up, he confesses to Claudia that he doesn't really even want to be all-powerful anymore. His whole life, he's chased anything that he hasn't or didn't have already. He chased power, fame, respect, and authority. And in the end, he wasn't grateful for the things in life that he already had. A loving family. He feels as though he's taken his children for granted and begs Claudia to just let him rest with her until it's time to go. He'd rather explore the Xadia countryside, try their immersive cakes, and live a life that he was made to live for his last 30 days rather than continue to chase something greater than himself up until his last breath. And while ever so soul-touching and sweet, Claudia is not amused. She tells Viren to lock in and get over himself, as she cannot lose him anymore.
Oh, what?
as he feels he can lose those around him. She will not choose again, and she will not lose another close family member. Janai and Amaya are celebrating their engagement within the Sunfire Elf camp. Since the vicious takeover of their land, the Sunfire Elves have had to make a makeshift living facility with the help of the humans while they wait to rebuild their permanent home. While celebrating, Janai's younger brother, Callum, pulls her to the side. He has some major qualms with her dating Amaya, none of which have to do with Amaya as a person, but rather what Amaya is. He argues with Janai about the likelihood of her and Amaya's relationship being widely accepted, and the main reason he's bringing any of this up is because Janai is now the queen of the Sunfire Elves. After her sister died, she was the next in line and is now the ruler of them all. If half or more than half of the Sunfire Elves do not approve of her decision to marry Amaya, then it could cause disruption within their community, and internal violence is not necessary. Her brother urges her to rethink her decisions, but this whole conversation ends up making her angry, and she sends him away, but ponders what he said. The episode ends with a surprise guest. Rayla has returned. She doesn't make her appearance known right away, but rather visits Callum first. However, his greeting is not what she was hoping for. Episode 3, Breathtaking. He doesn't even want to talk to her, saying he'd rather just go to bed, but stops himself when he sees how upset Rayla is about it. He asks her if she found Viren after all of this time, and she admits that no, she hasn't, leaving Callum to become even more frustrated, claiming that she's been gone for all of this time for no reason. Before Rayla can respond to his accusations, her furry friend hisses at Callum. She then introduces the two. She met an orphan cuddle monkey while on her travels and decided to become her cuddle monkey. The cuddle monkey's name is Stella, and she appears to be incredibly attached to Rayla. After Callum says nothing to her introduction, Rayla, seemingly unimpressed, apologizes for leaving. Callum doesn't say much as he falls asleep. While looking at his drooling face, she realized that she sacrificed the best thing that ever happened when she left, which was Callum. The day of the ceremony has finally arrived, but there's anxiety roaming in the air. Opeli pulls Ezran to the side and admits that while she doesn't have anything against the peace greeting, some of the civilians have noticed that they feel it to be a bit inappropriate and offensive to hold a meeting in a beautiful cemetery where they honor those whose lives were lost to Dragon and past conflicts with Xadia. Ezran doesn't concern himself much with her warning, as he feels as though most people are past that, and decides to continue with his plans, especially since it would be too late to change their locations now. The Queen and Zim arrive, and Ezran decides to show off the painting he had made specifically to honor her, but when he goes to unveil it, it appears to have Zubea's face carved out of it. Ezran is shocked and hurt, but remembering what Opeli said earlier that morning, he begins to understand. In order to calm the nerves of the crowd, Ezran changes the speech script, directly addressing the situation. He apologizes to Zubea and the crowd, saying his location choices may not have been the best. However, he isn't sorry either. He purposefully chose this location in order to move past the war and hatred that humans and Xadia have against each other. He understands that maybe he was moving too quickly, disregarding what they remember and stand on now. But he also calls for peace, saying that while they may not be perfect yet, they should begin making strides in the right direction. The past will never be forgotten, but there's a bright future in its wake. Everyone is incredibly impressed by his speech, including Zubea, who tells Ezran that even she felt healed by his words, and now feels more hopeful for the future.
Boy, Ezran, when you spoke, it was as though you could see my own heart.
During his speech, Claudia had decided to go into the dragon lair alone to retrieve her father's staff, thinking that the coast was clear due to the dragons being gone. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't know that Ibis permanently resides here as well. The two begin to fight just as Ezran begins calling for peace. Claudia appears to be in the lead, but is overtaken once Ibis forces her to stab her own leg. Claudia is about to die when Terry comes in and stabs Ibis through the chest in order to save Claudia's life. Terry, clearly horrified at what he's done, breaks down in tears, muttering, I had to, over and over again. The episode ends with Ibis casting one final spell before he dies, alerting Zubea that the magical staff has been stolen once more and that the fallen star is rising once more. Episode 4, Through the Looking Glass. Things heat up in the Sunfire Elf camps. Literally. It's customary in their culture to light a flame the day that the Sunfire Elf dies, and allowing the flame to burn all the night helps guide its fallen soul to the afterlife safely. It's said that if the flame goes out, that the soul could be lost forever. a human architect begins to yell at one of the elves for his soul flame, not understanding and not choosing to listen to him wherever he tries to explain that it's actually a super big deal if the flame goes out. The architect has her own reasons for not listening, as she's blinded by the fear that the hard work she put into building the camp could burn down if he does not put out the flame. She refuses to listen even when he tells her that he can stay up all night to tend to the flame to ensure that its fire wouldn't spread. The architect marches up to the Sunfire Elf and puts out his flame. Enraged, he grabs her wrists and burns her hands, yelling at her for what she's done. The two get pulled apart, but it's clear that the architect is the one in the wrong. Zubeia informs the humans that she must rush home to figure out what's going on with Ibis and the staff. Callum, Rayla, Ezran, Bait, and Soren insist that they tag along with her and Zim. As these type of situations, they should be involved as well, especially if it involves Claudia and the other evils that they believe have sunk their teeth into Viren before he died. Before they depart, Callum insists that he grab the magical mirror as he believes it might have something to do with this fallen star, since its engravings on the outside said something about gazing at a fallen star. Meanwhile, Ezran and Rayla hear directly from Zubeia the story of the fallen star that Ibis was referencing in his urgent message. Long ago, there was a different dragon queen, Queen Luna. She mysteriously died and didn't have an heir to the throne, so all of the dragons began fighting. It wasn't until Queen Aditi of the Sunfire Elves, Junaya and her sister's grandmother, that Aravas mentioned before killing Aditi's older sister, leaving the throne to her. She called the dragons together, and because she was such a good leader, the dragons trusted her to decide who the new Dragon King would be. However, before she could make her decision, she mysteriously went missing, further confusing the dragons. They began to fight amongst each other once more, assuming that one of them had killed Aditi before she could make her fateful decision. One day, the most unlikely person figured out Aravas's true nature, a human girl. You see, Aravas was an extremely powerful elf. He was considered one of the great ones. Aravas is a Star-Touch elf, the rarest elf race in the series. Star-Touch elves are known as the first elves, the ones that originate from the heavens. Their nexus is unknown, and they are regarded with deep respect amongst the other elf nations. Aravas used to be respected as well until it was found that every single major conflict was his doing, whispering in the ears of the innocent and corrupting their minds. His main target is mages, especially human ones. Their thirst for power is enough to begin talking to Aravas, and after gaining their trust, he slowly possesses their hearts and souls to do his bidding for him, with nobody ever knowing that it had been Aravas all along. Once the dragons learned of Aravas's treachery, they conspired against him and trapped him in a prison mirror. None of the dragons knew where his prison was located. Each was given a piece of information that would lead to the area where it would be located, but none had full picture, thus allowing for none to get any ideas, breaking Aravas back out. When Zubeia's husband became king, he was given a mirror resembling one of Aravas's own in order to look after him and make sure that he was trapped for good, which might be the one that Callum now has. Zubeia explains the reasoning behind why Callum has been unable to see anything in the mirror. He must look at it in pitch darkness. Once arriving at the storm spire, the group mourns Ibis, finding his dead body outside at the top of the spire, where he had cast his last spell. Once inside the dragon house, the group huddles around the mirror with Zubeia creating a storm above in order to black out the storm spire. Once they see Aravas, he possesses Callum and insults the group, calling them dumb, worthless, and mocking them, as if his freedom is already in his grasp. He releases Callum and slams his fists on the mirror, shattering it and breaking their connection to him for good. Callum collapses onto the floor with Rayla by his side, while the others process the interaction that just occurred. That night, Terry wakes up Viren due to him crying so hard. Terry confesses to Viren the sins that he's committed, but Viren helps Terry by simply telling him to get it together, that Viren would do anything if it meant protecting his family, and that Terry should do the same. This doesn't necessarily cheer Terry up, but it does make him more at peace with what he has done. That sunrise, Claudia demands that Viren cast the spell to hatch the strange chrysalis that has been growing in their midst. But Viren hesitates too much, leaving Claudia no choice but to do it herself. She unleashes the creature and, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this guy, it's pretty fugly. How are you just being born but already balding? Episode 5. the Great Gates. It becomes alarmingly obvious that it was Claudia who killed Ibis when the group found one of Claudia's bracelets left behind during her quarrel. Soren theorizes that she must be trying to continue the evil works that their dad had started with Aravas. As in, they have competition on who can find his prison first.
Claudia's powerful, desperate, and she's picking up where he left off. Plus, that's her bracelet.
Ezran asks Zubeia if it would be possible to find the prison if they asked each dragon for the information that they hold on its location, putting all of their clues together and finding the hidden location. Upon my research, archdragons are typically more skilled dragons that have a stronger connection to their magical primal. They also seem to live longer, and at around age 70, they learn to speak, opposed to several dragons that we've seen before, such as the red dragon, who have not shown any signs of knowing how to speak. Anyway, Zubeia admits that while the idea may be risky, it might be their only shot at finding the prison before Claudia does. She doesn't want Zim to go, so she orders him to stay in their tower, which, as you can imagine, doesn't last long. Zubeia takes the group to the nearest archdragon, Rex Igneous, but the large entrance to his underground lair is blocked off by boulders for some reason. The two guards explain that there is a smaller back entrance, however, it's too small for Zubeia to fit through, thus leaving everyone else in their group to go off on their own. While journeying to the back entrance, Soren gets caught up trying to rescue a small dragon from Earthblood elf hunters. A large Earthblood elf was supposedly trying to show the ropes to a smaller Earthblood elf, but Soren has other ideas. He spoils his plans of domestication, leaving the Earthblood elf but no choice to throw him into the pit. Meanwhile, nobody knows exactly where Soren is, as he has gone off on his own to do all of that. Claudia, Viren, and Terry are off on their own journey following their strange new slimy friend. The creature gets frustrated with the group for not understanding where it's trying to take them, so it draws a small picture in the dirt. Claudia and Terry think it's a lizard in a hat, but Viren is smart enough to figure out that it's supposed to represent a dragon inside of a mountain, which he immediately realizes is supposed to be Rex Igneous, assuming that the dragon will have all of the information on the prison. Boy, are they in for a surprise. They continue their journey forward. Episode 6, The Drakewood. The group heads off to look for Soren, as they assumed he would come home that night after his brave adventures, but never returned. While in the search, Zim finds them. He went against Zubeia's best wishes, as he couldn't fathom them going on a quest without him. The group desperately tries to tell him to go home as they fear his mother, but he doesn't listen, determined to stay and to help them in any way that he can. Ezran has Zim fly up, allowing Ezran to see through his eyes to see the full landscape in order to more easily spot Soren. They do find the pit, but before Zim can get a good glimpse of the mysterious hole, he starts getting chased by the Earthblood dragons and the elves. They take Zim down, but have not retrieved the body yet, as they must find where he fell. In order to give his friends more time, Callum casts a mist spell, fogging up the forest and giving them more time to find Zim before the Earthblood elves do. Unfortunately, they're too late, but luckily the Earthblood elf that found him was just a small child who was being lectured by a big elf in the previous episode. He faintly tells the crew to back off and that this is his dragon, but after finding out that the dragon is actually the prince, he completely loses his cool, bowing and apologizing to the prince instead. He offers his assistance, explaining that he's never been good at taming dragons, the way that all of the other Earthblood elves do, and he doesn't fit in with them anyway.
I know where they took your friend.
That's good news!
Regarding the ongoing Sunfire Elf situation, a trial is to be held in order to determine her fate. It's common in their culture that when someone goes to trial, their options are not guilty, found guilty, or guilty sentenced to death. Amaya and the other humans don't understand why the punishment has to be so great, but after hearing the Sunfire Elf's side of the story, it becomes clearer just how cruel the architect actually was. Amaya was assigned to be the architect's defense, but she doesn't try to deny the horrific acts that have been committed. She admits that the architect is indeed guilty, but that she'd like them to rethink their decision to sentence her to death. Janai appears to be guided by the ruling cabinet of Sunfire Elves titled the Horns. They rule that she is guilty of her crimes, but Janai, being a kind queen that she is, does not sentence her to death. Instead, she orders her to build a shrine and a safe house where all elves can honor their loved ones in peace, with no fear of their flames being put out. Karim is upset with her choices. He's seen meeting with the head of the Horns, his presumed lover, he ominously states that soon Aditi will be dethroned. We're led to believe that he could potentially be referring to murder. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Soren finds that the dragons inside the pit hate shiny objects. Due to this discovery, Soren takes all of his armor off, leaving just his pajamas. He tames the dragon, flies out of the pit, and attempts to find his way back to the campsite. However, everyone is gone, looking for him, and continuing their search for the back entrance to the mountain lair, but there is only one person nearby, Claudia. Episode 7, Beneath the Surface. Soren chases down Claudia, announcing that he will end her if she doesn't stop chasing after the dreams of their father. Soren even references Viren, claiming that he's dead, and interestingly, Claudia doesn't object. Instead of killing his sister, Soren saves her from slamming into a tree, tying her up once they are back on the ground. He attempts to change her mind about everything, but she doesn't say much in return. Callum, Rayla, Ezran, and their new Earthblood friend, Nathan, begin their pit journey, worried that if Soren is down there, he may have been eaten. There are supposed to be 3 chambers filled with challenges before the group can make it to Rex's lair. The first consists of a crystal labyrinth, with all the different colors of primal energy stones. There are orange crystals spread throughout the cave that are musical crystals. All they have to do is hit each crystal in the cavern in order for the exit to open up. The second chamber is a dark bridge. The way to get past it is to be completely silent and pass the bridge in the dark. They fail this chamber, so Zim has to save them, but they all end up making it out. Their last chamber is arguably one of their easiest. The chamber has a lava lake, and they must wait for the lava to go down in order to cross. To pass the time, they decide to rest here. Callum casts a wind spell so that they will be cooler for the time being. In the middle of the night, Callum wakes Rayla up. He has something to ask of her, but it isn't what anybody's expecting. He asks her to kill him if he ever gets possessed by Aravas again. When he was under his control, he felt as though he wasn't in control of anything, and that he would hate himself forever if he was ever forced to do something he didn't want to do. Rayla scoffs at his request. She states that she will not be killing him, and that Callum is completely in control of himself no matter the circumstances. Aravas will not use him as a puppet. Callum is capable of writing his own path and will not stray. And with that, Rayla heads off to bed. Callum, still not convinced by the conversation, attempts to throw away his Aravas key, the box with the primal symbols engraved into it, but he is unable to do so, sadly walking off to bed along with the rest of them.
Wait, Callum. It's the key of Erebos. No good will come of it.
That night, Viren and Terry go on a walk together in hopes of figuring out where Claudia has gone off to. It only takes them a few hours to spot her satchel caught up in a tree. They eventually find her tied up near Soren. Terry, using his elf blood powers, releases her bonds easily, given that they were made of vines, leaving Soren to be their new prisoner instead. The episode ends with Soren finding out that his father is in fact alive. Episode 8. Rex Igneous. Something that hasn't been done in ages resurfaces from Carmen. He approaches his lover, telling her the tale of the challenge of blood and ash. It used to be customary in their culture to allow someone the right to challenge the king or queen to the death in order to overthrow a corrupt dynasty. It wasn't until their grandmother banished the custom, as it was annoying for royalty to constantly battle warriors who were in want of their throne. Callum explains how he wishes to challenge his sister to this duel in order to get her off of the throne. Janai has the right to refuse the fight, giving up her crown and handing it over, and Callum assumes that Janai will do this easily, given her current circumstances. He believes her not to even want the throne, but rather be forced to carry it in the absence of her sister's fall. This couldn't be farther from the truth, however. While her brother approaches betrayal, Janai takes Amaya away so they can talk about everything going on in her mind. Aditi explains the whole situation, and Amaya, being the wonderful girlfriend and future wife that she is, asks one simple question: what does Janai want with her life? Janai responds humbly, insisting that you cannot have your cake and eat it too. To which Amaya responds, why not just have 2 cakes? And honestly, she has a point. Janai is a wonderful leader with compassion in her heart. She's capable of being queen and faithfully supporting Amaya through the transition of humans and elves coexisting, and she will do just that.
Just have 2 cakes. 2 cakes. Just have 2 cakes?
Back in the caves, the brave group of heroes has finally met Rex Igneous. According to Nathan, it's customary that people who reach Rex must bestow upon him a gift to show respect. None of them knew about this before their adventures, so they came unprepared. But they did not disappoint. Rayla gives up her butterfly swords, revealing to the group that they were specially handcrafted by the best swordsmen in her Moonshadow village. They were gifted to her by Runan and his husband, Ethari, when she was learning to be an assassin. The swords were all that she had left from any of her parental figures, but she's giving them all to Rex. Callum goes next, offering Rex his staff that was given to him by Ibis, their fallen friend. It's special to Callum because it's the only thing they have left of him. Ezran goes last, offering his crown, made from his father's sword. It's no precious metal, however, it is one of the last items given to him by his father. While these gifts seem touching, Rex is not amused. He scoffs at the children, saying that none of what they've given him is anything he's not seen before. His entire cave is filled to the brim with relics, and he's tired of the same old stuff. He announces that their gifts were not satisfactory, insisting that they must die now. Ezran's quick thinking is the only thing that saves them. He presents to Rex one final offering, the brown tart that the chef made him before he left on his journey, and Rex loves it. He's so impressed that he grants them an audience for one question, but when asked about Arvos, Rex says he will not help them. Ezran gets frustrated and brings up the Dragon Queen, which he shouldn't have done, as she had explicitly told them to not bring up the lightning dragons, as Rex does not get along with them. Rex goes on and on about his mistrust and disgust with Zim's father's leadership, seemingly unaware that he has died. Zim gets so frustrated that he flies at Rex and electrocutes him. It should be noted that Zim has been disguised as a dog in order for Rex to not recognize him, but obviously this falls away after he flies. Rex, amused that his rival sent his newborn son to him, continues to make fun of their region. Ezran then announces that the king is dead, which finally shuts Rex up. He apologizes to Zim, saying that while he didn't like his father, the two were once good friends. He then agrees to help them with the Aravos situation, sharing that he does not know where Aravos is, but he does have a map. But before he can give it to the children, Claudia shows up and puts them all to sleep. Episode 9, Escape from Umbertor. All of our adventurers fall asleep, except for Zim, who is, for some reason, immune to her spell. Zim finds Soren with the group, releasing him from his chains. Soren then uses his stinky shoe smell to wake Rayla up, as well. The three watch as Claudia and Terry find the map engraved into Rex's teeth. How convenient. Rayla wakes everybody up by stabbing Rex in the tail, his roar being enough to wake the rest of her friends up. Rex is furious with the group as he assumes that Claudia was with them all along. He roars and sways his massive tail, causing his cave to crumble above them. During the chaos, Rayla notices none other than Viren going for his staff. Callum sees what's happening and silently gives her permission to go after him, her goal since 2 years ago when he got away the first time. Rayla quickly runs off, and using Terry as leverage, she demands that Claudia bring Viren to her. Claudia, oh so cunning, threatens Rayla right back, but with something much more precious than a fling, her parents and Runan, all thought to be dead, but rather are stuck inside of their soul coins. She flings the coins towards the lava, leaving Rayla to release Terry and go after them instead. However, when she opens the bag filled with coins, there are only pebbles in their wake. Rayla begins to sob as Claudia and Terry make their way out of the cave, but Terry is not happy. He's disappointed in Claudia, stating that while he knows she does dark magic, he can always see the good reasoning behind it. However, what she just did to Rayla was just overwhelmingly cruel for no reason. Claudia, not wanting to upset her man, decides to go back to a crying Rayla and throw her the real pouch, saying nothing and leaving once more. Rayla, now with her family and the will to live, makes it back to her friends just in time to make it out before the whole cave collapses on top of her. Rex makes it out as well, still after the children, but Zubeia is not far behind and protects them from his wrath just in time. He leaves them alone, but they aren't free from all of the dragon's wrath just yet, as Zubeia is incredibly annoyed with Zim for going against her direct wishes. The group makes up excuses saying that if Zim hadn't been with them, they surely would have died multiple times.
But if he hadn't defied you, then you wouldn't have showed up to save the day, so we'd all be super dead!
So there's that.
But she's still annoyed. Viren uses dark magic to get him, Terry, and Claudia completely out of the caverns in order to be safe from its crumblings. Once out, Claudia announces that while they aren't able to excavate the tooth, they were able to copy the map down by using a strange slime that Terry keeps making from their monster friend. When Viren turns to look to his daughter, his eyes are glowing purple, and his face turns ashen just like it would have when he used to do magic. Back at the Sunfire Elf camp, Janai receives her brother's challenge, hurt that he would even send such a thing. She approaches him before confronting him about his decisions, but he doubles down. He asks her to forfeit the challenge, to which she refuses. Thus, the battle is held, but Janai does not back down. She easily defeats her brother, slashing his mage staff in half. Customs would have had it that she beheads him, but she doesn't. Instead, she banishes them from their own lands forevermore. If he is ever to return, he will be killed on sight. He is stripped of all belongings and set off towards the desert. Book 5, Ocean. Episode 1, Domania Profundus. Season 5 begins a bit strangely. Callum, Rayla, Ezran, Zubeia, and Zim are all on a small rocky island with crashing waves surrounding them. There's a strange structure that Ezran places a glowing blue orb into, which shoots out from the sky. The episode then cuts to Rayla and Callum back at the castle. The two, well, mainly Callum, are stuck doing research while Ezran is on a dragon quest, giving us information in regards to what they were doing in the first scene. Ezran hopes to speak with the ocean Archdragon to ask for more information on the prison. Callum is researching Aravos while Rayla focuses on her cursed coins. She wishes to figure out more information about them, but she doesn't want to distract Callum from, saving the world and such. Rayla goes behind Callum's back, stealing his mage key and heading to the secret basement where Runen was held captive and where the dragon egg lived. While searching for information on the coins, Rayla finds two important items: Runen's bow and another soul coin. But this coin has a face on it that is not familiar to us quite yet. The face on the coin moves, leaving Rayla to throw it on the floor and seemingly forget about it. She leaves the basement and is caught by Opeli and guards waiting outside of the secret entrance. They put her under arrest, which is silly considering she's best friends with both their prince and king. Callum is called and he immediately calls for Rayla's release. Opeli is convinced that Rayla was doing something wrong, urgently giving Callum every reason to think the same. Rayla stole his key, didn't tell him what she was doing, and left the basement with the weapon that was used to kill her fallen king. But none of this matters to Callum. He says that if Rayla didn't tell him, then there must be a reason for her doing so. He trusts her unconditionally and continues to demand for her release. Rayla is touched by this and incredibly grateful, as she didn't want to tell him the reasoning quite yet.
Means I trust her. Unconditionally. Let her go, now.
Considering their dire circumstances. Later that evening, Callum approaches Rayla with information, or more so information on how to get the information that they're currently needing. Oh, you get the point. Since every scroll and book that mentions Aravos suddenly disappears upon opening, Callum has decided that he'd like to research Star Touch elves in general instead. They're a rare species and not commonly talked about. However, Callum assumes that they must be referenced in the Great Bookery of Lux Aurea. The two agree that they will head off to Xadia come the morning. While Callum and Rayla are figuring out their own path to Aravos, Claudia and Terry have reached a screeching halt. Viren hasn't been able to move since attempting dark magic again. Claudia tells Terry that normally you only have a super bad reaction to dark magic once, the first time you ever do it. But since Viren had previously been dead, it seems as though he's having to go through it again as if his body had never done it before. Claudia is anxiously waiting to move along with their journey, but Terry is convinced that they should wait a bit in order to see if Viren will wake back up. In the meantime, Terry introduces coping, bringing Claudia a bunch of grounding items so that she can better manage her anxiety. And then we have Ezran. He's finally got the Ocean Archdragon's attention. He insists that he needs their help with the current situation, and after the Dragon Queen's confirmation, the Ocean Dragon admits that while she doesn't know anything about the prison's location, she does know the nature of his prison, which I assume means she knows where his prison is by what it's bound by. Episode 2, Old Wounds. This next episode features the first of what I like to call Viren's silly nightmares. Similar, yet much worse than anything Callum had to witness during his first season. It begins with him hearing a child call out to him, Daddy, over and over again. Viren searches for this child, but he is nowhere to be found.
Where are you?
Later, Viren lands in the old dungeon and speaks to the strange man who had moved inside a soul coin that Rayla had picked up when she had found Runen's bow. Kapar ridiculed Viren for how far he is willing to go and what that's gotten him so far. Kapar is sporting bandages all along the length of his arm. When Viren asks about them, he mysteriously mentions an old and disturbing practice. Kapar lands one final blow to Viren's mortality after Viren insists that he did what he had to do. however vile for his family. Kapar simply states, "You did what you had to do, but not for your family. You did whatever you had to do to give you the most power." Viren's visions get stranger with people talking backwards and jazz music playing in the background. It begins to frighten him a little. He ends up throwing his crown down, and once it slams onto the floor, it turns into the beaten and bloody version of itself, instead of the nice clean version he currently had on his head. He then gets transported to a vision involving the king. It's a recreation of the night the king died, and instead of ridiculing Viren, calling him a servant, he instead calls him a brother, reminding him of how important he is to him. While this calms Viren's nerves, he isn't spared from the torture for long, as the king's eyes begin to glow purple, speaking backwards, as the other people were before him. His last vision is of a toddler Soren, excited to be in his father's arms, but he soon pulls a Spider-Man, vanishing and turning into dust. Aside from these night terrors, during the episode, Callum and Rayla make their way into Xadia. Episode 3, Nightmares and Revelations. Our next episode begins with Ezran being successful in communicating with a large audience of dragons. The Dragon Queen summons all sorts of dragons to the clearing, and Ezran insists that they all must search for Claudia and her father in order to stop them from getting to Erebos. The dragons comply, agreeing to the humans' bidding in hopes that their safety will be ensured.
Grant us your wings, your eyes, your power. We must search tirelessly to the very edges of Xadia. Together, we can stop them before it's too late.
Now back to our regularly scheduled program of Viren's horrific nightmares. He's still in the room that Soren disappeared from. Viren uses dark magic in order to get him back, but like usual, his eyes turn black and his face turns ashen after he uses the magic. Soren is at first happy to see his father, but after seeing the monster that he has become, he runs away in utter fear. Viren then has a vision of Claudia. He sees her walk in his footsteps as she's a child, turning into her adult self. She continues to follow in his footsteps all the way into the ocean, subsequently drowning herself. Viren leaps in after her, but before he can reach her hand, he's transported to yet another room, this time facing himself. A nicer, cleaner, younger-looking version of Viren is on the other side of the mirror, and he, too, is scared of what he becomes. Viren tells himself that he had no choice in the things that he has done, that fate has written his path for him, set in stone. The other Viren is appalled by this, leaving the mirror and refusing to clasp hands with himself. While this is going on in the real world, Claudia, Terry, and Viren fell overboard their boat. Claudia had to save her father, paralleling his saving her. Once on shore, Claudia realizes that Viren isn't breathing. She begins to panic, hitting his chest until he wakes up, coughing up all of the lake water in his system. It's good that Viren is awake, but he's mute, seemingly dead inside, and can't make eye contact with anyone around him. The morning that Callum and Rayla arrive in Sunfire Elf Camp, Junai has a horrific dream about Erebos. Upon their arrival, they propose to Junai and Amaya their plans of visiting Lux Aria, but Junai immediately denies them access. Apparently, after Viren had taken over their lands, it sparked dark magic through the city's borders, causing large monsters to fester. These dark spirit monsters can wreck someone from inside out, turning people, or elves, into dark monsters themselves. Thus, any travel to Lux Aria has officially been banned. Obviously, Callum and Rayla discard their warnings, planning on entering the bookery regardless. Amaya isn't stupid and knows Callum incredibly well. She meets the two at the border of the camp, already knowing that they're going to go to the bookery anyway. So Amaya declares that she'll go with them. Junai and her had a talk, with Junai knowing that the two would go on without her permission. Everyone feels safer with Amaya going with them, so the two end up getting escorted. Remember Callum, the backstabbing traitorous brother? Well, he's still alive and kicking, stumbling through the heat of the desert. He stumbles upon a member of Lux Aria who actually agrees with him. He offers Callum water, stating that he supports Callum's dreams of a better ruler and wants Junai to be dethroned and replaced. Episode 4, The Great Bookery. The ragtag group of heroes enters the Great Bookery. They have until sundown for the dark magic spirits to come out to play, so they've got to make it fast. Callum begins searching hard, finding several books that could help them kill Erebos if he ever were to escape. While he's searching, Amaya pulls Rayla to the side to have a heart-to-heart. Amaya apologizes for trying to kill Rayla when they first met, and Rayla forgives her, allowing the two to be less awkward around each other. Before the conversation ends, Amaya brings up another thing that has been on her mind. She insists that if Rayla ever breaks Callum's heart again, that she'll kill her without a second thought. Rayla starts to argue with Amaya about her reasoning, but Amaya doesn't let her get more than a few words out before she interrupts her again. Amaya explains that the two of them are incredibly similar, skilled in battle, loyal to a fault, running for the next opportunity to stick up for what they believe in, fight for those they love, always feeling like they're not enough. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be tough all the time. You can let others in. You can let others love you without wanting to run away. All you have to do is trust them, and everything else will work itself out.
You have to trust them to share the burdens you carry.
It's revealed to the audience that Kerem's strange ally has been bitten by a dark magic soul, as he has a strange bite on his arm that he covers up before Kerem can notice it. Kerem takes the two to visit Sol, the original Dragon King, the one who previously tried to kill both Rayla and Callum. Kerem insists that Sol reclaim his spot as king, but Sol has no interest. He's blind and his wings are literally rotting. There's nothing he can do except sleep and wallow. Kerem, who's still not convinced that Sol won't help them, decides to go on a quest, one involving them healing the great dragon. Rayla, having the realization, decides that she will tell Callum what's been bothering her, referencing her soul coins. She tells him and also explains why she hadn't told him before. Callum is understanding and excited because he had stumbled upon a book that could help them in regards to the coins. Unfortunately, right when he says this, Amaya announces that it is time to head out as the sun is starting to set. Callum asks for 2 minutes, but he's 2 minutes too late. The soul spirits attack, and they are just barely able to hold him off. But right when they think they're home free, so many more show up, like 40 times as many. The group prepares to die, but is rescued just in time by the Dragon Queen, along with Ezran and Soren. The Dragon Queen easily takes out a large group of the soul spirits, allowing most of them to get onto the Queen safely. There's one small problem. I accidentally forgot bait. Amaya jumps back into the battle in order to save the little guy, sacrificing herself in the process. Ezran and the others don't want to leave her, but decide to listen to her pleas to flee whenever she uses her voice, something that she never does, to yell at them to go. The group begins to ascend, but while exiting, the queen gets bitten. Corvus jumps into the battle, kicking the soul away from her lower stomach, but falls in the process. Amaya and he quickly join together, fighting for their lives as the rest leave. On their way out, though, a miracle happens. Amaya and Clovis sneak into the book drop, allowing them refuge from the dark souls. All they have to do is wait out their attack until morning, and they should be home free. Episode 5, Archmage Akayu. Ezran tells Callum that the Ocean Archdragon revealed to him that the Archmage Akayu, a Master Ocean Mage, is the one who built the prison, so they hope that she knows also where the prison is located. Callum excitedly tells Ezran that he has found the weapon that will kill Erebos. It's in a super tall sky tower, really far away in the ocean. On top of it, also possesses a crystal that would be needed to cast the spell that would save Rayla's parents. This low-key weirds Ezran out because the main point of his research has been to stop Erebos from returning rather than to kill him once he's out. Ezran insists that they should focus on trying to stop his release before focusing on the weapons.
We can solve this without any violence.
In order for Kerem to heal Sol's eyes, he sets his hopes on acquiring the Sun Seed, and he knows Junai has one. She hopes to rebuild their city on it, but Kerem believes that you could not grow a city on a weak foundation. Kerem takes his traitorous friend to the Moonshadow Forest, where an ally he knows can help them resides. Long ago, a group of Blood Moon Elves used strange blood rituals to prolong their life and to do weird culty things. Their group name was the Cult of the Blood Moon. Because of their horrific practices, Luna, the Moon Queen Dragon, wanted them dead. Each and every one of their clan was murdered except for one, Kimdale. She survived and asked Adit, Kerem, and Janai's grandmother for safety from the Archdragon, to which she granted it under one condition. Kimdale would be under the Mercy Oath, so any royalty in the Sunfire Elf Kingdom could summon her at any time for favors and such. And that's exactly what Kerem plans to do. Meanwhile, Soren is getting worried for the Dragon Queen. Her wound is getting larger and looks like magical goop. The Dragon Queen is not concerned as she thinks she suffered worse wounds before. She encourages Soren not to tell anyone else, as she doesn't want people to be worried about her. The Dragon Queen drops off the group where Akayu should be located. and it doesn't take long for them to find, well, this other mage? She claims to be the spokesperson between travelers and the mage, but once she hears that they're searching for Erebos, she becomes very wary of them. She agrees to let them meet the real mage as long as they follow her instructions, and her instructions aren't great, leading them all to the esophagus of a cave monster that would rival Star Wars. Thankfully, Soren, of all people, realized that it was a trap before it was too late, warning his friends from the outside that they're going to be digested. Zim uses his electricity to zap them all out, with gross ooze coating the floor below them. Ezran is furious, asking the mage why on earth she would have tried to kill them. So she tries to explain herself. When she was approached to make a magical prison, she agreed, but accidentally glimpsed the marking on the map to its secret location. She was supposed to be killed, as no single person could hold that much power, but instead, she made a deal. She would die before telling anyone the secrets, so in order to protect herself, she decided to kill them first, so that they could not force the information out of her. The group explains what's at stake, and the most important detail, that some people already know where it is. She happily helps them. Now that she doesn't have to kill herself, she tells them about the nature and hands them a map, and the group leaves her cove, wandering back to the location that the Dragon Queen had said she would pick them up at, but she's nowhere to be found. Because she's got other things to worry about, her wound is growing larger, causing her to get drowsy and grumpy. Her eyes are turning bloodshot purple, and she has decided that she must stay in the spire in hopes of regaining some of her strength. Episode 6, Bait and Switch. Because the Dragon Queen is nowhere to be found, Rayla takes the group up to a sketchy island in order to find someone to take them to their secret location. Ezran immediately spots the biggest and fastest ship, but Rayla forbids them to ask about it as it's owned by Finnegan, who is essentially the owner of the entire island. Ezran insists, thinking that Finnegan will help them given their dire circumstances. But oh, he could not be further from the truth. Ezran and Callum head to Finnegan's lair, but Ezran is the only one allowed in. Finn agrees to let them use his second fastest ship, as the one Ezran had his eyes on was his pride and joy. He would never lend it out to anyone for any reason, but in return, Ezran must give him bait. Obviously, Ezran refuses, so Finn gives him another offer. If he gives him bait, then he can have 3 baby glow toads and use his fastest ship.
Drive a hard bargain. Fine. I'll give you the ship for half the glow toad.
Of course, Ezran continues to refuse, leaving Finn's office disgusted with the man. He heads down to the dock where Soren had found their old shipmate, the lads, their favorite blind bestie. Before they take off, Ezran decides that he must do something about the baby glow toads destined to die. The crew concocts a plan. Soren leads Finn away with the false narrative, leaving Ezran enough time to grab the toads and dip before Finn can notice. And surprisingly, the plan works. Well, except for the going unnoticed part, Finn knows who stole the toads and is determined to get them back, no matter what. Meanwhile, Claudia and Terry are getting bombarded by a blue dragon flying overhead. All the dragons in Xadia are on the lookout for Viren, and Claudia quickly learns that the weirdness in the air is in fact personal. Terry protects them from the eyes of the sky several times before they are unable to hide any longer. Claudia boldly announces that she's tired of constantly running. She then does a dark magic spell, choking the dragon with ice. At first she plans to choke the poor thing to death, but when she sees the level of fear in the dragon's eyes, she stops. Not because she feels bad, but rather because she knows that she scared the beast so badly, it won't try to infiltrate them again. She releases the dragon and it flies off, not giving her a second glance. Episode 7, Sea Legs. It doesn't take long for the crew to realize that Finn has caught up to them. Callum does what he can with his sky magic to try and slow him down, but Finn seems invincible to ocean struggles. In a last-ditch effort to get him off their back, the crew decides to enter the no man's land of sailing, a giant area with huge rock spikes that are way too close together for Finn to manage, and the best part? There's a ship blocking their exit, so even if Finn did follow them, he wouldn't be able to cross. Or so they think. The crew watches awestruck as Finn follows them no problem, and when he reaches the shipwreck, his ship crawls over over it. It's revealed that his ship is actually a huge house for his gigantic hermit crab to live in. Eventually, Finn catches up to them and successfully captures them. Meanwhile, all hell is breaking loose in the Sunfire Elf Kingdom. Kimdale is not trying to be too stealth, as she invisibly kills every elf in her wake. Her task? Steal the Sunseed. But Janai is not ready to go down without a fight. Karim's lover, the head of the Horns, and trusted by the Queen, is asked to do a specific task for Janai, but we don't know what that is yet. Janai then meets Kimdale head-on, seemingly battling to the death over the Sunseed. Only there's one problem. When Kimdale finally makes her way to the seed, she's shown a bright lantern instead. Furious, Kimdale goes in for another blow to Janai, but before the impact, Janai announces that the only way for Kimdale to find the seed would be through her, so she must keep her alive. And so, Kimdale teleports away with Janai.
You kill me now, you'll never know where the Sunseed is.
Without a trace to follow them. The episode ends with Amaya and Corvus finally making it back to the camp after their hideout in the Great Bookery of Luxaria. Immediately upon returning, Amaya is told of Janai's situation, and she almost faints with worry. After collecting herself, she immediately begins the hunt to retrieve her. Episode 8, Finnegrin's Wake. Finn's instructions are clear. Callum must do a dark magic spell for him in order for him to be released, but Callum refuses. Finn, who is obviously annoyed, takes Callum to the deck again, asking him which of his friends' hands he would like to be chopped off, as punishment for stealing the baby glowtoads. Each of Callum's friends stick up for each other, all begging to be the one to sacrifice their hands, which confuses Finn. Callum yells at Finn again, earning him his spot back down in the belly of the boat. This time, Finn is not playing around. He tells Callum the reason behind his needing the spell is to kill the ocean arc dragon. Apparently, she got snippy with him when he was trying to deep sea fish. He had caught too many leviathans, leading her to destroy everything that Finn owns, including his old pet, his hermit crab's sister, his most prized treasure of all. Callum continues to refuse, so Finn leaves the belly with Bait in a tight cage. Callum starts yelling for Bait's freedom when Finn drops the most devastating bomb yet. Bait is only to lure the Leviathan. The real food will be Rayla, since Callum seems to love her so much.
The one getting thrown into the sea serpent's hungry mouth is your elf girl.
Immediately, Callum starts yelling for his release, telling Finn the ingredients to the spell that he's looking for to kill the Archdragon of the Sea, and insisting that he'll do anything to let Rayla be free. But Finn is fed up with the whole situation, laughing in Callum's face and claiming that his previous deal with the boy is now moot. Right before Rayla enters the water, swirling with monsters, Callum emerges on the top deck using his wind spell. He carries Rayla back into the ship, successfully saving her from peril. Now it's Soren's turn to save the day, or rather, Elmer. Basically, this whole time that they've been interacting with Finn, Soren had noticed how poorly Finn has treated his right-hand man. Finn calls him Deadwood, always ridicules him, and essentially treats him like he's stupid. Soren has been making offhand comments here and there about how Deadwood should stick up for himself, but he seems to be ignoring him. After Rayla was safely back on the ship, Soren began to voice his concern to Deadwood. He explains that he has been in Deadwood's exact position before, and that just because the person who leads him is evil doesn't mean that he has to be so. Deadwood doesn't listen at first, but after Soren smiles at him, even after he hits him over and over and over again, he appears to have a change of heart. Deadwood walks up to Finn and lifts him above the Leviathan. He then proclaims that his name is Elmer, not Deadwood, before throwing Finn into the mouth of the monster below. The crew decides to use Finn's ship to travel to their location, which is when Nyx conveniently shows up and tells the crew that she had directed Finn to go to this direction before she was granted her freedom. Back to the more dire situation at hand, Karim's friend speaks for him in the wake of everything that has happened. He tells the group that the only way to get Janai back is to hand over the Sunseed. But even Amaya, the one person who would want Janai back the most, refuses, stating that if Janai sacrificed her life for the seed, then there would be absolutely no way that she would hand it over that easily. So Amaya does what Amaya does best. Sprint face forward to her certain death. She rides a horse out with Karim's messenger boy behind her, making it look like she too has horns. She lunges at Karim, but once she's close to finishing him off, Kimdale comes to his rescue, threatening the king at the same time. However, she is not allowed to kill royalty according to her mercy plea contract situation. Karim relinquishes her debt in hopes that once she's out of it, she can do as he says. But since Karim doesn't want to wear the crown, He is unsuccessful in his ploy to become royalty. Callum and his lapdog escape before they can face the consequences of their actions. Episode 9. Infantis Sanguine. Zubeia has a dream in which she asks for counsel from her befallen husband. She wants to rest, to give up, and allow her body to go in order to be with him again. But he argues and wins her over. She needs to gather strength in order to be there for Zim. She wakes up from her dream and flies to find help, but not before she is overtaken by dark magic, plummeting to her death. Right before she hits the ground, she's able to level out, landing in a peaceful grove of trees. Later in the episode, we're shown a mushroom mage doing magic on her wound, seemingly healing her. Meanwhile, both parties have finally made it to Aravas's prison, and I'm sure you can assume that some fighting must occur first. First of all, let's get into Claudia's nasty ways of dark magic. Like Callum was over here making him and his friends ocean gills, and Claudia turned herself into an octopus that rivals Ursula. Viren watches Claudia.
No matter, your daughter is far more powerful.
As she walks into the ocean, reminding him of his dream and waking him up from his trance for the first time since his hellish nightmares. He yells out to Claudia, but he is too late. Aravas makes his presence known to Viren. He tells him the final step in his resurrection spell, the blood of his child, Infantis Sanguine. Viren is appalled, yelling about how he will never sacrifice one of his children in order to save his own skin. But Aravas has a more disturbed solution. You know that strange creature that has been following them around this whole time? Yeah, well, Aravas claims that it's him and Viren's kid. Yeah, not sure the genetics behind that. But oh well. Viren still refuses, as he doesn't want to do dark magic ever again. Aravas warns him that he will never wake again if he does not complete the spell, but Viren doesn't seem to care. Meanwhile, deep in the ocean, it's revealed that Aravas's prison is the shape of a pearl, living inside a random clam. Before Claudia can get to it, Rayla slices off her leg, and Callum gets rid of her potions so she's no longer able to breathe underwater. Claudia resurfaces, held by Terry, and he finds what has been done to her leg. Meanwhile, Rayla, Ezran, and Callum retrieve the prison, finally safe with their strange orb. The episode ends with us seeing some of Karam's point of view, with Miana coming to his aid, with a huge plot twist. Remember when I said that Junaya had asked Miana a favor not too long ago? Well, it was to keep the Sun Seed hidden, but she ended up bringing it to Callum. And that's not all. Miana spread the word throughout the Sunfire Elf camp and gathered an entire army that wanted to follow Callum instead of Janai. Oh, and Janaya returns home safely but is greeted with the knowledge that half of her people have betrayed her and that the Sun Seed has been stolen. Book 6, Stars. Episode 1, Star Touched. Our next season begins with Aravas having a crying fit in a universe-like climate. He is comforted by another Star Touch elf. This one, a woman. Oh, and Aravas saying that Viren will die on his last day? Yeah, he was lying. Viren wakes up the next day with Terry in his face, crying. The two embrace as Viren didn't think he would survive the night once he closed his eyes for sleep. Viren sees Claudia and she explains that Aravas didn't lie. Claudia did the ritual, she did everything for her father. She had blood on her hands, a missing leg, white hair, and ash all over her face. Essentially sacrificed her life. But Viren is done with his life. He won't help her find Aravas to repay him, as he'd rather have died than done that. So he insists that he wants to go back to Catolis and pay the price for the life that he has lived thus far. But he walks away from her anyway, letting her stay there on the beach, begging and screaming for him to change his mind. Claudia has been betrayed by her entire family after risking her life or dying for them each.
You can't! I saved you! You owe me your life!
She then closes herself off, telling Terry that she's going to leave him before he has the chance to leave her. Ouch. The rest of the good guys go back to Catolis in order to talk to Opeli and the chef to have their opinion on what to do with the prison. Ezran wants to keep it safe somewhere so that no harm can be done to it, but Callum wants to destroy it because as long as it exists, it poses a large threat to the rest of the world. However, nobody is sure that if you break the pearl, that it will kill Aravas. It may end up just letting him out. Because of this, Ezran rules that they must keep the prison in Catolis, protecting it at all costs. This doesn't set right with Callum because he knows just how powerful Aravas can be even while living in his prison. Callum approaches Rayla as he'd like to travel to the Startouch Elf Spire to get information on Aravos, and of course collect the gems that Rayla needs to save her parents and Runan. Rayla is frustrated with Callum for bringing her own personal wants into the conversation, as she'd like to honor Ezran's ruling and not get involved with the whole Aravos' prison situation. That night, Callum has a nightmare of him being trapped in Aravos' prison, and it ends with him smashing it on the ground. Callum rushes to wake up Rayla, telling her about the situation. He gets Ezran involved and is granted permission to seek out the Startouch elves. Meanwhile, Ezran sends Soren and Zim to Corvus, who is currently residing in the Sunfire Elf Camp, on a journey to find Zim's mother. Zim hasn't been well ever since his mom didn't come back to pick them up, and has been nowhere to be found. Episode 2. Love, War, and Mushrooms. And with that, they're off. Soren and Clovis find a large patch where Zim's mother appeared to have landed in the forest. They can't figure out where her body is though, as there's no trace of her getting up from the spot where she had fallen. Ever so clever, Zim finds a path leading deeper into the forest covered with mushrooms, starting at the large dragon-shaped patch. The group goes to sleep once they reach the last mushroom, but wakes up to a huge circle of mushrooms surrounding them. There's one mushroom in particular that draws their attention, and it ends up standing up. The mushroom runs away, leaving the group no choice but to chase after him. He leads the group to a clearing with huge mushroom guys. Before they're able to ask any questions, one of the large mushrooms sprays spores all over them, which causes them to pass out. The crew wakes up wearing mushroom hats, which must stay on in order for the mushroom guys to see them as friends rather than foes. The Mush Mage introduces himself, telling the group that he's been treating the Dragon Queen since her fateful arrival near his mushroom paradise. He leads the group to Zubeia so that Zim can see her. Her wound looks way better than before. However, she must stay there in order for her to complete her treatment. She tells Zim that he must stay with his brother Ezran while he waits for her return, which is so cute, I might add.
Your brother Ezran needs you.
As one might suspect, Janai is not handling the betrayal of her people well. She demands that the horns take off their masks so that she can see what they're really feeling from here on out. She then gets so frustrated that the seed is missing that she begins to burn down the tree where the seed had been residing. Thankfully, Amaya stops her just in time. After she calms down, Amaya tells Janai that she must not try to figure everything out all by herself. Karam and Janai address their own armies of people, but both with completely different tasks. Karam is filled with jealousy and rage, while Janai is filled with reassuring words and kindness. Karam promises sanctuary of their policies, while Janai promises growth and a new year for their kingdoms. Episode 3, The Frozen Ship. Our next episode begins with Callum having a nightmare about him using dark magic again while in Finn's ship in order to free himself from his chains. When he awakens, he and Rayla continue their journey without their ride, as the beast is too heavy to travel across the icy plain that they're traveling on. Rayla enters an abandoned ice ship while Callum waits outside. She finds an old diary that mentions a lost romance, almost describing Rayla and Callum's relationship to a T. Callum hears her crying and quickly finds his way into the ship. When he finds her reading, he gets annoyed that she was supposed to be searching for information, but she insists she was reading inside the diary. Yeah, she definitely wasn't. Callum decides that they'll spend the night there since it was already nighttime. But things get a little awkward when there aren't two blankets. And of course, Sneasels and Starla don't help. Before the two can be romantic at all, Callum admits to Rayla that he did dark magic again, as he didn't think it fair not to tell her. The two begin to argue.
I know.
So why? Why would you do it again?
It doesn't matter now. I did it. I'm ruined. It's too late for me. Who cares?
Leading to some fast movements, and the ship that they were staying in starts falling off its icy pedestal. In the process, their candle falls and starts a massive fire. In the chaos, Rayla and Callum forget about the pearl, leaving Rayla no choice but to go back into the building right after they escaped it the first time. When all is said and done, with Rayla back with Callum, the pearl in her arms, Callum makes her promise him, if she's going to get upset about him doing dark magic again, even if it was to rescue her, if Aravos ever takes over Callum's body again, she must not hesitate to kill him. Terry waits for Claudia to return, hoping that she'll change her mind about leaving him, and he wasn't wrong. Claudia does come back, but something's just not right. She passes out shortly after making her presence known to him. He bathes her and cleans her wounds and attempts to make her whole again, even in her silence. Terry cuts her hair and forms a leg woven out of sticks and earth blood magic. She hugs him and the two embrace, together once more. The episode ends with Viren arriving at Catolis Castle. Ezran greets him at the bridge, but he is not so kind. He yells at Viren to stop crying and asks him if he's begging for mercy. Viren mutters that he isn't, to which Ezran states, "Good, because you don't deserve any."
My king, I am a humble servant. I've been humbled and brought low.
Episode 4, The Star Scraper. Callum and Rayla arrive at the skyscraper, and Callum is able to do the spell to begin their Star Scraper elevator journey. The two arrive at the first level of the scraper and are greeted by a bunch of elves with wings and eye masks on. They act a bit cryptically and ask if they're the Chosen Two. Callum doesn't know what this means, so he doesn't say anything, leading to the strange elf to drop them back down to the bottom of the scraper. While falling, the pearl rolls off their elevator, leaving Stella no other choice but to jump after it. At the bottom of the scraper, Rayla is relieved to see her furry friend in one piece with the help of the strange blindfolded elves. The two elves are brother and sister, Cosmo and Astrid. They apologize for almost killing the two and explain that because fate seems to have a different idea for them than they'd thought, that they'll let them live and allow them to sleep in the comforting warmth of the scraper. They also refuse them again to speak with their elders, the people in charge, as the only Chosen Two are allowed to access further up the scraper. Cosmo and Astrid then go on to explain their blindfolds. Essentially, all of the elves on the first floor of the tower are celestial elves, an ancient sector of Skywing elves that focuses solely on the stars. The blindfolds are so that the light of the sun and the light of the moon never touch their eyes. The only light that is ever shown is true starlight. It's said that these conditions one might open to starlight and be enlightened. They experience the past, present, and future all at once. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a moonless night since Luna, the Moonlight Dragon Queen, reigned. After finding that they aren't able to ever take off their blindfolds, Rayla holds their hands to comfort them. They feel her fingers and find that she's a human. They then reach over and touch Callum.
Round ears, no horns, but greasy hair. You're a human.
They ask the two if one is a mage and the other a warrior, to which, coincidentally, they are. They announce that they are, in fact, the Chosen Ones, to which Rayla agrees and she'd like to go talk to the Elder. And apparently, you can only do that if you're one of the Chosen Two. Once the two are granted access to their Elder, they immediately ask about the weapon that could kill Erebos, but there is an upsetting fact that they have yet to learn. While the weapon might kill Erebos for a few years, he is a Star-Touch elf, an elf from the heavens and not a physical person like the rest of them. Every couple of years, when Erebos' stars align, he will be able to manifest once more onto the Earth. So there's no true way of killing him, which would explain why they've kept him in a sphere prison instead. With that out of the way, they are told their prophecy. A mage and a warrior will strike the heart of the behemoth, causing their endless suffering on moonless nights, allowing them to access their heavens, and in return, the heavens will adorn them. At first, Callum and Rayla are uninterested in the offer, but Callum is more excited about it than Rayla, and he does end up convincing her to go along with it, hoping that the adornment from the heavens might help them out in some way. Meanwhile, Claudia is not doing the best. She doesn't know what to do now that she isn't told what to do by her father, or strung along some fate-altering quest for days on end. She asks Terry if they should just quit dark magic, but even the idea of doing that doesn't make her feel much better. She decides on the only thing she can do at this moment is to go and try and see her father again. Karim doesn't waste any time taking the Sun Seed to Sol immediately. At first, the old dragon is not excited in the slightest to see them. He even threatens their life until he senses the Sun Seed that Karim possesses. He allows them to speak, listening to Karim as he tells them about the miraculous healing that they could perform on him. But Sol is unamused, simply saying no to his offer. The episode ends with Ezran informing Soren of his father's return. Episode 5, Moonless Night. Soren chooses to be the guard in charge of giving his father his daily food. Viren attempts to tell Soren the truth, how he's feeling, how sorry he is. But Soren doesn't want to give Viren the time of day. He listens, but he's sure that his father is lying to him, telling him things that he'll just want to hear in order to get under his skin and manipulate him once more, just like he has for his entire life. When Soren gets fed up with it, he orders someone else to bring his father food instead. Meanwhile, Callum and Rayla quickly and efficiently take down the behemoth Roar. Rayla realizes that the large monster that has been terrorizing the skies is actually the fallen dragon queen Luna's valiant friend. It was her closest companion. The only reason that it's been targeting the elves is because it mourns Luna even more whenever it's a moonless night, as there is no remembrance of her. Rayla gives the behemoth a moon opal, placing it around the creature's heart, helping stop the storm and prevent its mourning every moonless night.
I understand, because there are people I've lost too. People I miss so much.
Because of Rayla's kindness, she successfully fulfilled her and Callum's prophecy, and the best part? Being adorned by the heavens is being gifted the crystals they've been needing to perform the spell in charge of breaking Rayla's parents and Runan free from their soul coins. Apparently, Callum knew all along what the prize was going to be, and he only didn't tell Rayla because she would have refused to do the challenge, as she wouldn't want to get anything out of it for herself. Now that the moonless sky is cleared of its thunderstorms, the Skywing elves are ready to take off their blindfolds for the first time and hope that they get blessed by the heavens. Out of all of them, the only one to have a celestial experience is Cosmo. His eyes glow while he levitates. He begins to see what he sees in people: his sister's beauty, Rayla's courage, and the mercy that has led them all to this point. But when he gets to Callum, all he sees is darkness. So much so that he passes out in his sister's arms. The episode ends with Viren having another nightmare about Aravos. He awakens horrified, yelling like a madman about how he will never be controlled by that freak ever again. Episode 6, Moment of Truth. We're finally able to find out just why Viren started with his dark magic in the first place. When Soren was just a baby, he got very sick. So sick that he was certainly going to die. Viren went to his mentor, the one we've seen before, asking him if it would be possible for him to pass down the dark magic staff, as it has been tradition to pass it down thus far. But Kapar refused, as he was super against the use of dark magic, so he left Viren no choice. Viren stole the staff and used it to entrap him in a soul coin. He did this so he wouldn't get in trouble and so he could stay in his high mage position. He did all of this to save his son, as he would have died without it. But it goes deeper than that. In order to complete the spell to save Soren, he approached his mother, as her tears were needed to complete it. She was already crying, horrified at Viren's appearance. She begged him to leave her alone, but instead he pinned her against the wall and held a vial to her face. He watched as the vial filled with her tears and realized that in that moment that she was completely right. He had become a monster, and he knew there was no redemption for him in her eyes. And then he did the worst thing that he could admit, blaming Soren for the damage that he has caused. Callum is not doing well with the "your soul is full of darkness" situation. But what's even worse is when Callum and Rayla try and trust the Skywing faction to keep Aravos' prison safe, it's revealed that Callum grabbed the candy decoy that they were supposed to leave in Xadia. Their plan was to leave a fake, tell nobody it's a fake, and bring the real one to the Star Elves. Callum insists that he did bring the right one, but Aravos must have gotten into his head, telling him he had the right one or swapping them while Callum was sleeping. Callum feels weak and disgusted, but there's hope. Cosmo approaches Callum and lets him know that just because that's what he saw in Callum, that isn't all that was there. When a human does dark magic, it grows like a seed deep in their soul, but there's a way to heal the dark hole growing inside of you. You just have to be incredibly strong and willing to try. Astrid pulls Cosmo to the side, chastising him for punching Callum while he was already down, by telling him the truth about the prison when he's already upset about his soul situation with Aravos. Because of this, Cosmo goes back in time, changing his wording and not letting Callum know that he's switched up the orbs.
What is not complicated is that you have brought the pearl here, and we will keep it safe.
Because of his switch, when asked about going through the necessary trials of healing your soul from dark magic, Callum doesn't hesitate to say yes. Callum partakes in a Star Truth ritual. He must ingest the venom from a star-weaving spider. Then he must fly up to the heavens and confront his one deep truth. Then and only then will he be able to heal himself from the darkness raging within. However, he must hear this warning. If he heals himself and chooses to do dark magic once more, he will be completely overwhelmed with darkness, unlike anything he's ever experienced before. And with that, Callum flies off to experience celestial healing. He reaches a woman figure who embraces him in the sky, and he comes back happier than ever. That night, he confesses to Rayla that he regrets the way he acted when she first came back from being gone for 2 years. The two decide to redo what went down for the first time, and let's just say it was much more romantic and heartfelt than the last time. Episode 7, The Red Wedding. The Red Wedding begins with Janai and Amea's worst nightmare coming true. While unbeknownst to them, Callum has used the Sun Seed to restore Soul's wings and solidify his army. The grumpy old dragon had insisted that he did not need the seed to restore his eyesight, but he would need it so that he could soar once more, enabling him to rain fire down upon his enemies. Parallel to this, the ceremony of love and a new chapter begins. The first royal elf and human marriage is happily taking place in the Sunfire Elf Kingdom.
Every time I look up and think the clouds are about to clear, they part and move only to reveal more clouds.
But Callum is all ready now. He has already approached their camp with Soul in their sky, interrupting their most important day. This doesn't set well with Ezran, who was an honored guest at the wedding, along with the other young princes and Clovis. He asks Janai if he could try and talk some sense into her brothers so that she may continue her wedding in peace. She reluctantly agrees, but insists that once the wedding is over, Callum will be out of time and she will be coming for blood if he doesn't listen to reason. But Ezran isn't quite prepared for the level of audacity that Callum is portraying. He doesn't just want the throne, he wants all humans to go back to their side of the border and stay there forever. He doesn't believe in them mingling and is hardened on his stance on conservatism. It doesn't take long for Ezran to find out that Callum has summoned Soul the Archdragon, and he's barely able to make it out of there alive, and unable to warn Janai's army of the incoming threat. An epic plot twist ends this episode. Soul does not come to Callum's rescue. In fact, he's hundreds of miles away over the Catolis castle. Episode 8, We All Fall Down. Soul obliterates Catolis castle to the point of Soren calling for a mass evacuation. He runs down to Viren and demands that he perform the dark magic spell that turns regular human bodies into their lava crust counterparts to withstand the heat of the fiery blasts. Viren tries to deny him, but Soren demands it. But there's something that Soren doesn't know about. It takes a heart to cast the spell. Soren tells Viren to take his own, but Viren can't stand to hurt one of his children. So he does the only thing a dad can do. He cuts his own heart out to cast the spell to save his son and his son's people. His last words were, "I am a servant," as he crumpled in on himself.
I am a servant. I am a servant.
Because of his father's sacrifice, Soren is able to get the rest of the civilians out of the kingdom, successfully as planned. Soul flies off and lands in some rocky terrain nearby, close to death due to how many wounds he's inflicted upon his attack. Aravos makes his presence known and evilly tells Soul the worst news of his life before he dies. Apparently, Soul had a lover at one point, and he hasn't been able to figure out what happened to her. Aravos happily informs him that Soul himself was the murderer of his wife, as his rage-induced rampage crushed her very body. It should be noted at this time that Callum's little traitor friend, the one that I thought had been bitten by a dark magic creature, his glowing marking is not that of a wound, but rather Aravos controlling him. He rode Soul into battle at Catolis on purpose, possessing the Sunfire Elf in the process. After Aravos informs Soul of his befallen lover, he angrily devours the Sunfire Elf vessel that Aravos had been using, choking on the body and dying for good. This is probably the worst possible time for Claudia to have made it to Catolis, but she arrives just in time to see the carnage that has befallen her old home. And then there's Viren's body. Claudia cries over the body of her father, but is led back to the evil light when Aravos begins whispering in her ear again. She's drawn to his prison, glistening in a pile of rubbish. Aravos apologizes to Claudia for the death of her father, emphasizing that he did everything in his power to keep him alive. But then he asks Claudia if she would still like to help him. And to Terry's surprise, she doesn't immediately turn down his offer. Aravos then goes into detail on what Claudia will need to do to bring a person's soul back to its original body. Blood, feather, bone, roots, flame, power of the star, a quasar diamond. Aravos reveals that inside Viren's staff is actually a quasar diamond, meaning one of the diamonds in Rayla's crown is a fake. Claudia performs the spell Aravos tells her to perform, but it doesn't seem to work for some reason. Episode 9, stardust. The spell didn't work because Claudia must cast it with love, so Aravas opens up to her about his past. Long ago, he had a daughter named Leola. He called her his little unicorn, as she was born with only one horn. She was his pride and joy. Being the light of his world, she was brave, strong, and most of all, kind. She made friends with all sorts of beings, even humans. One day, she was taken by the dragon's soul and the celestial beings as she broke a major cosmic rule, giving magic to humans. Leola taught humans a way of doing magic that had been forbidden for centuries. Aravas asked for them to punish him instead of her, hoping to sacrifice himself, but the only mercy they could show him would be to kill him alongside his daughter, so he wouldn't have to live without her. At that moment, Aravas decided to live, mostly so he could find a way to get back at those who wronged him. After watching his daughter die, Aravas cried for 100 years straight, completely filling the crater that she left with his tears. Claudia is touched by his story as it reminds her of her own father, allowing her to easily perform the spell with love in her heart for him.
Erebos did what was necessary. Like my dad.
When she does finally resurrect him, he, for some reason, appears as someone easily over 100 feet tall, and he lifts Claudia up towards the moon, much to Terry's confusion. Meanwhile, Rayla and Callum are on their own journey to resurrect their family members, because she only has 2 crystals, which means she can only bring 2 of the spirits back to life. Rayla takes a swim in the moon spirit pool in hopes of finding closure with her family members. She finds Runen first, but he is surrounded by green goop and seems very spiritually unhappy. She then stumbles upon her parents, who have been dancing in a meadow since they were sent to this limbo realm. You see, in order for spirits to be completely moved into the other side, they must first be reconnected with all parts of themselves, hence the true torturous nature of the coins, as they will forever be separated from the rest of their soul. Since Rayla can't take all of the spirits that she'd like, and her parents seem relatively happy with her life choices, she gives them their coins, and they happily move on into the afterlife. Runen's situation is a different story. There's a lot of unfinished business that he's left behind, and he isn't ready to move on from the land of the living just yet. So she offers him the chance to come back, and he takes it. Callum is able to perform the spell, and Runen is reunited with his human form once more, embracing Rayla and excited to see his husband, Ithari. Book 7, Dark. Episode 1, Death Alive. Our final season begins with Cosmo muttering a cryptic message, which Astrid finds out to mean that Aravas has returned. Apparently he wants to make the dead join the world of the living once more, possibly having something to do with his long-lost dead daughter? Cosmo has heard all of this, but the celestial elves don't seem to care as they're just observers. Astrid doesn't agree with their customs, claiming she never promised anything to their stars, and their policies don't pertain to her. So she takes off her blindfold and announces that she will find the mage and the warrior. But before she leaves, Cosmo decides to tell her everything he knows in order to try and prevent her from getting herself hurt while away. Meanwhile, Runen's Lotus is floating in the Moonshadow Elf Pond again, leaving Ithari to become hopeful that Runen might be returning somehow. Aravas is trying to help Claudia, I think, in his own weird way. Claudia asks him if there's any way to bring her father back again, but there isn't any possible way for that to happen. However, there is a possibility that he may be stuck in the in-between. Terry is annoyed with Aravas for putting false hope in her heart, but Aravas insists that he's simply trying to help by answering her questions. He does owe her his life in the end, as she's the one who finally resurrected him. Aravas then goes out into the ocean, shrinking himself and making a small island in the process. He then transforms himself into an old mage. The reason he's changing form is because while he's immortal, the bite of an archdragon can still kill his human vessel form until his stars align again, which is something we haven't known until now, as Callum wouldn't have been searching as hard for a weapon against him if that weren't the case. Callum and Ezran are mourning the loss of their home, not knowing what could have possibly caused that much danger. Soren explains what happened after they've all calmed down. Ezran is furious at the damage that was caused by Sol, so he demands that they find and destroy him. Little does he know that he's already dead. Corvus and Callum head off to the Valley of the Graves, as he was sighted to land somewhere near there. Once they arrive, Corvus is suspicious of the new island that wasn't there before. Callum begins to believe him, but the two are interrupted by a very strange old hag, Aravas. He offers Callum a red apple. Okay, Snow White reference? but Corvus isn't easy to fool, demanding the hag keep the apple and telling him that it was weird that he already knew Callum's name, even though they hadn't introduced themselves. The hag doesn't bat an eye, saying it would have been weirder if he hadn't known the High Mage of Catullus' name, given that's where he's from. The two travel back to Catullus, running into Rayla and Runen, who made their way back to Catullus so that they could collect Callum once more. The two lovebirds don't like to be separated. Ezran has other plans. When he sees Runen, he immediately calls for his arrest, blaming him for the destruction of his world, his home, and his father. With no mercy in his heart and the rest of his comrades looking on, sadly, he has Soren arrest Runen as he kneels defeated. Episode 2, True Heart. Rayla and Callum argue over Runen's situation. Callum understands where Ezran is coming from, but Rayla is frustrated since his being in prison is getting in the way of her reuniting him with his husband. Still frustrated, Rayla storms the council's dinner meeting, demanding that Runen be set free, but Ezran isn't budging. Anya and Ezran appear to be besties. He invited her to his council so that he could get her opinion on things. Their first matter of business is the discussion of rebuilding. Anya informs Ezran that he must be prepared for war before rebuilding, or they may just be knocked back down again. Later, Callum finds Rayla crying, mourning Runen, and trying to figure out what to do next. Rayla decides that she is going to break Runen out of prison, since Ezran has basically given her no other choice. Callum wants to help Rayla break Runen out, but she could never ask him to betray his own brother. But the other thing she does ask of him is to forgive her. Forgive her for leaving with Runen for an undisclosed amount of time. Before Rayla can successfully get Runen out of Catullus, Soren catches her, leaving her no choice but to fight for their freedom. Callum approaches Ezran by calling him a jerkface. You know, they're brothers, so it makes sense. But this doesn't land right with Ezran. Callum begs Ezran to rethink his decisions, but nothing seems to be able to change his mind. During their conversation, they begin to hear Soren scream, "Rickety Snickers," which is code for, "I need help with something that's happening." Ezran comes to his aid, but Callum is stronger than their little soldier army. He freezes their feet to the ground, allowing him time to run off with Rayla and Runen. Claudia, Aravas, and Terry head off on their own journey to create their own moon primal, so Claudia can return the land of the dead to the land of the living again. Aravas's bidding as usual, she just doesn't know it yet. In order to get the primal, they must travel to the land of the innocent, the place where unicorns used to roam. Claudia announces that she's been there before. She used a magical map that was owned by Viren's mentor, Kapar. So the throuple head off to find his old mansion in order to begin their new journey. While they're in Kapar's old home, Aravas finds his darkest secret. Remember, whenever Kapar had said he was experimenting with some old magic practice, the reason why his arm was all bandaged was that he was self-eating to try and extend his life. After moving on from that, they find the map that they are looking for. Only Terry is the only one that can see anything on it. This is when Aravas begins to talk to Claudia one-on-one in her mind, telling her that only the true of heart can see the map. It's rare for adults, but easy for children to see. He informs her that they must pretend to also see the map so that Terry doesn't feel weird for taking them where they clearly don't belong. Claudia feels bad, but goes along with it for now. Episode 3, The Glittering Bones. Following the battle between Janai and her brother, Janai decides to pardon everyone who was a part of his army. But of course not Karam. She doesn't know if she'll ever be able to forgive him, as he tried taking her entire world away from her. Her crown, her wife, and her way of life. It's not fair, and he must be punished for it. However, her opinions on the matter falter when she finds out that Miana is pregnant. Ezran also does not know if he'll be able to forgive Callum for betraying all of Catullus. Ezran throws a fit in the council room, shooing everyone away, even Zim, someone he's never wanted near before. Amaya pulls Ezran to the side, reassuring him that their brotherly love will exist again once more. Ezran doesn't seem to believe her much, but goes along with her anyway. She takes Ezran away, telling him that she has something to show him that hasn't been seen in centuries. While on their flight there, she tells Ezran the truth about the human and the Xadia border. Back in the day, humans would rise to become great mages, war after war trying to be the most powerful. They stripped their land dry of all magical resources, killing off so many of the magical creatures that they nearly became extinct. Eventually, the group makes their way to the cave, flourishing with the magical stones that Anya has been using as explosives in her arrows. She brought Ezran there so that he could utilize the stones to protect his kingdom from dragons, which makes Zim a bit uneasy. Terry, Claudia, and Aravos make their way into the forest, with Claudia slowly remembering the path, even without the map. Aravos appears to be having fun, genuine fun. He smiles and laughs with the two. Once in the unicorn graveyard, the two send Terry away to collect feathers while they gather the real ingredients that they need. The bones of a unicorn. Upon Terry's return, he overhears Aravos and Claudia whispering about how they'll have to unleash an infinite night in order for the other spirits they're about to raise to be able to survive. Episode 4. Unfinished Business. A very happy reunion indeed. Runen reunites with his husband. The two embrace together, and again once more. Rayla has Runen go off without her since she has been banished. She didn't have the heart to tell Runen the truth. She wants to leave without ever having to look him in the eye, without him knowing, but he doesn't let her go that easily. Runen and Ithari confront her before she goes, insisting that there's a way to fix her banishment so that she may once more rejoin their city. Her fathers, as Rayla now calls them, that her parents are gone and they helped raise her, they call upon the new moon ritual. If she fails it, then they too will be banished. Rayla must face the 5 elves whom she killed in order to be judged by them. They alone will decide her fate. And while all the ghosts forgave her, there is still one person who must forgive, one that probably never will. The father of Ram. One of the Befallen is the elf in charge of getting rid of her ghost title. Rayla runs away from the challenge, not sure what to do moving forward. To honor herself, Rayla doesn't back down. She tells the Keeper that she will honor whatever she may choose, but she doesn't think banishing her will make him feel any better. Her words move him and he forgives her, welcoming Rayla back into the Silver Grove. Back in the forest, Aravos plays a dirty trick on Claudia. He told her not to tell Terry any of the dark information about what they were doing, only to tell Terry all of it once he is alone with him, telling him that Claudia had deceived him all along. Because of her deception, he chooses to leave, saying he'll always love her, but he needs to continue to be the man that she had originally fallen in love with. And he can't do that if he stays near her right now. Episode 5. Sticky Fingers. After Terry leaves Claudia, he goes to Catolis to talk to Ezran. In the process, he lets slip that Aravos has been resurrected. He also tells them literally everything he knows, but only after Ezran swears on a sap oath that no harm will come to Claudia. He suggests at the council meeting that they should reach out to Claudia's mother in hopes of knocking some sense back into her, that she doesn't have to have her father when her mother is still alive and well. Soren objects, but showing the table a picture of their mother so that they may find her. In the Sunfire Elf camp, Amaya goes against Junai's wishes and she had sentenced her brother to death, but Amaya tries to save him, which doesn't work the way she wanted it to. Karam scoffs at her even trying, doubling down on his thoughts of humans being the vermin of the earth. While Amaya is unable to change Karam's mind, that doesn't mean Miana is a lost cause. She goes into his cell to tell him that she has been freed. However, she has nothing to her name. She asks Karam to give up his fairy tale that he has been living so that he can live and just be the father of her baby. Some dreams are too big, but the small ones can be oh so sweet. Karam just needs to realize that. The episode ends with Ezran and Rayla being visited by Astrid, who informs the two that the fallen star has returned and that it'll cause darkness to engulf the entire world. Episode 6. Inversion. Aravos and Claudia make their way to complete their journey, but before they finish, Aravos confesses his half-truths to Claudia. Terry told him something that he actually takes to heart. While he may tell the truth, he only tells half of the story. The gaps he leaves for others around him to fill in are how he manipulates people. He doesn't want to do that to Claudia, as she reminds him of his daughter. He tells her that he doesn't believe that Viren will be in the in-between, to which Claudia admits that she didn't think he'd be there either. She remembers the look he had when he left her on the beach. He put his evil life behind him and found peace. So he has no unfinished business. He has no reason for not being able to move on. Aravos asks Claudia why she would still go through with the plan then, but she turns the question back around onto him. He tells Claudia that he wants to mess with the celestial balance to the point of causing the celestial guardians pain. They killed his innocent daughter for a mistake she didn't mean to make, and for that he wants them to suffer for all eternity with him. And with that, the two have a newfound understanding of each other, and they continue on their way. Before they can get too far, Soren and Terry show up to interfere with them. Not only that, but they bring Claudia, her mother, shocking her to her core. But Claudia knows the truth. Her mother is not real. Her illusions are too obvious to Claudia. She stabs her mother, killing Lou Jane in the process. Claudia freezes the rest of the group, leaving her and Aravas a private perch to perform their spells. Aravas sends Claudia on her way, saying that there's one more threat to neutralize. Before everything can go Aravas' way, Anya shoots his vessel in the throat, hindering him only for a moment. He returns to his true form, turning the island that he had abandoned back into his original body. Ezran and Zim are there to witness his transformation. Ezran fires rounds at Aravas with a hidden army, knocking him down and hindering his movement. During this, Astrid shares with Callum how he didn't leave Aravas' prison with them, but rather the fake candy orb, and as he did before, he doesn't take it well. He begins having a semi-panic attack, spiraling out of control, leading him to see himself in the negative light that used to plague him before the threat of Aravas was out of his head. Callum flies away thinking he needs time by himself, but when he lands, he has a vision of himself, an evil version of himself. Evil Callum jokes around with him a bit, and ends the conversation with, "You know, I'm the only one who can save them all." Okay, weirdo freak. Episode 7, The Titan and the King. Our next episode begins with Callum writing a letter to Ezran, the first step in his plan to warn Queen Junai and Aunt Amaya of the coming threat. Their task? Protect the corrupted sun orb in Lux Aria as Aravas seeks to use its power to create eternal night. The next? Get the Archmage of the Ocean to create another prison. And lastly, get all of the Archdragons together to help them seal the deal. Astrid calls for Amaya's help, but Janai has a different thought towards the Sun Orb than protecting it. Apparently it's next to impossible to protect something from a Star-Touch Titan, so that leaves her no choice but to decide to destroy it. But only the strongest of all the Sunfire Elves would be able to do such a spell, Karim. She asks him to perform the sacred spell, even though she hardly trusts him. She assumes he will do what is right. Karim agrees to do the spell for them. Ezran distracts Aravas while everyone else is on their own separate missions. And by distract, I mean he speaks to him about his plea, as if Aravas hasn't done enough evil with the proof of a millennium. He tells Ezran of Callum's fate. The dark magic will soon consume him in order to save everyone he loves. This disturbs Ezran deeply, but it doesn't disturb him as much as the dozens of ghost creatures do when they make their appearance known to him. While all of the chaos is going down, we are shown a strange dark mage, the Necromage, from the other side approaches the Stone Dragon King. He resurrects the king, who is now a dark and dangerous version of himself. Callum and Runan go to IQ to collect the newly formed prison, but she is already dead. The tide pools have been boiled and IQ has been murdered. Claudia is in the cave with them and she doesn't come to play, and her and Callum battle it out. Claudia easily bests the two using her secret weapon that Aravas has given her, one of the last scales from the ancient dragon. She is enthroned in dragon scales, escaping the two by using her dragon fire as a distraction. With nobody to create a prison, Callum has no choice but to prepare to use dark magic to entrap Aravas into a soul key. And his final request? That Runan kill him once he's completed his task. And one thing about Runan is he doesn't come to play. He swears to Callum, and he will do it when the time is right. Episode 8, Dying Light. As one might suspect, Karim is not faithful to his promised words. He does not go through with destroying the Sun Orb. Instead, he goes behind their back and attempts to make friends with Aravas. Aravas picks him up, pretending to listen to his pleas of alliance, and then he crushes him in his fist. Janai is petrified, watching her only family get smushed to oblivion after being betrayed again. Aravas turns the sky into eternal night, allowing the dark spirits to flourish and live once more. Rex arrives on the scene, attempting to stop Aravas from continuing, but Claudia stops him by using one of her freeze spells. Eventually, Rex is able to outstand the spell, slapping Claudia out of the sky and almost taking out Aravas in the process. But just in time to save Aravas' ass comes flying the Great Dragon King, or the darkest parts of himself anyway. Rex is taking him down easily, but is hesitant when Zubeia lurches into the fight, calling the two to stop. While Rex is distracted, Avizandum grabs onto his neck from behind and breaks it, successfully killing his late friend. In the meantime, Ezran takes his ancestor's Nova Blade, realizing that her statue carries the very blade that can kill Star Touch elves, and wanting to use it on Aravos. Ezran arrives on the scene at about the same time that Callum and everyone else does. Aravos laughs in their faces as if they are about to use the Nova Blade on him, and he'll be back in 7 years' time when his stars align once more, and he knows there is no prison as he had Claudia go and kill the Ocean Mage. So Callum makes the choice that he's been destined to do all along. He will trap Aravos inside the Soul Coin. He must get to the top of the tower in order to perform the spell. After seeing Zim and hearing Zubea's screams, Avazendum musters the goodness inside of his soul and begins to attack Aravos instead. He does this while Callum is in the middle of his spell, halting the process. Aravos is outnumbered as he is being attacked by the 3 Archdragons now, that the Ocean Archdragon has joined their ranks. Zubea and Avazandum fly Aravos up into the sky, causing him to drop his staff, and holding the Sun Orb, it shatters to the ground, which frees the sun from its eternal darkness, making all of the evil spirits dissipate for now. Aravos makes Claudia exit as he cannot stand to watch another daughter die. She leaps through it, but she isn't fast enough. Soren, Corvus, and Terry find their way through the portal as well, which leads them all to the Storm Spire. It's here that Claudia traps Soren and Corvus in a large rock hands, nearly killing them, but decided against it. She tells Soren that while they may have given up on her, she's still the same person. She's still nice. She releases them and flies away. Back where the action is happening, Avazandum bites Aravos, successfully killing him for about 7 years. When stars die, they burn out, meaning they explode. So killing him also killed Zubea. In order to protect everyone on the ground, the Ocean Archdragon protects them all with her body and wings, also killing her in the process. After the war is over, Callum and Ezran make up. Zim speaks for the first time, just right out of the gate. They can speak fluent English, which is a little odd, but I guess dragons work differently than humans. Back in the castle, when Ezran is asked about rebuilding Catullus, Ezran announces that he'd like to build something new. So in hopes of making the world a better place, he, along with the friends they've made along the way, creates their own city, Everkind, where every kind of person is allowed and everyone strives to be nicer to one another. This new town will be a democracy where everyone gets a say in how it's run, in order to minimize distrust and arguments over who's in a position of power. Runan faces Ezran for judgment on killing his father, and Ezran forgives him. All that he asks is what his father's last words were, which were a bit weirder than what he had originally thought they'd be. His father's last words were a squawk of a bird. This excited Corvus because after his father died, there was a strange rumor of a bird now living in Catullus alone. So the group began to think that the king did end up doing the soul spell that Viren had mentioned to him before he died. He switched bodies with a beloved bird. A search party is sent out to find him. Callum surprises Rayla with a cute late-night date, and everything is right with the world. The last episode's last moments are dedicated to Leola's last wish. I wish that even in the dark, sad, afraid, and alone, that every child should know that they are loved. And with that heartfelt ending, I'm proud to announce the ending of The Dragon Prince. Let me know how you guys felt about that in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Thank you for watching.